Good evening. The September 7th, 2023 final budget hearing and board meeting are now in order. I am happy to welcome my fellow board members and the public. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the public that the appropriate place for public participation in the meeting is during your individual public comment opportunity as identified in the agenda. Outside of your individual public comment opportunity, your role in the meeting is as an observer. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Susan.
Here.
Miss Wright.
Here.
Miss Campbell.
Here.
Miss Jenkins.
Here.
Mr. Trent.
Here.
The board will now hold a moment of silent reflection to invite the audience to join. I would like to invite Gabriella Regaldo, a 6th grade student from Freedom 7 Elementary School. She will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we are fortunate to have with us Freedom 7 strings and piano keyboard students who will perform for us. I wanted to say thank you to Leo Zhao, who played the sonata in G major. We have intermediate strings that are being played by Bile M. Garbage Down. Yale Bloom is playing Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. Chamber strings are being played Boogie Woogie. And Sandra Hogg and Holly Waters are directors of the Freedom 7 music program, and we appreciate Kathy Lott, the principal from Freedom 7, for being here. With that, let's see what you guys got.
All right, guys. got somebody on.
Okay.
What do you doing?
I was gonna ask her
Oh, you were gonna,
questions
okay.
about her school, but we have more performance.
Okay.
Yale Bloom, everybody. Mr. Bloom, thank you for playing that. That's one of my favorite pieces. So now we have the chamber strings. They're going to play Boogie Woogie. Thank you, everybody. If we can get you guys to come up front, we'll take a picture with you, and then you can break down everything else. Come on up, guys. Let's go get a picture with them, you guys. Come on.
I got questions like, how long is it?
Let us know.
Yes.
Okay then.
What's your favorite thing to do, Miss Ava?
Draw.
What do you like to draw?
Cats.
Cats.
What do you like about your school, Ava?
Recess.
Do you like your teachers?
I like our teachers.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Miss Ava, what grade are you in?
Second.
Second grade. That's awesome.
So in second grade, what's the name of your teachers? Or if you have one teacher, sometimes there's two.
I have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So her name is Miss Youngkin.
And what is Miss Youngkin like? Is she fun? What does she do?
She's fun.
Is
Okay,
she?
that's awesome. And when do you learn to play all this great musical instruments and everything else? How do you learn that?
From Miss Hegg.
And do you do that before or after school? When do you do that?
Sometimes I go to music, and sometimes I don't.
And
Yeah.
Good job.
she's honest here. Honest.
What's your favorite instrument to play? Do you have a favorite one?
I like all of them.
Do you?
Good answer.
Have you got that recorder yet that us parents love when you children come home with that,
Yeah.
that recorder? Have you got one of those yet? No? All right, that's coming. It's coming. That's exciting times.
That's awesome.
Ava, I have a question. If you could change one thing about your school, what would it be?
Good.
Thinking hard.
She's thinking.
She's got a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Or maybe that it's so great she can't think of any.
She's prioritizing.
It's okay if it's nothing. Or more candy. That's usually the answer I get.
More recess.
Yeah.
So every day.
More playtime.
Miss Ava, would you come and teach Mr. Trent and I how to play some of these musical instruments? Would that be something that you'd entertain? Miss Wright would be a part of it too?
No, I won't. But I wish I could learn how to play an instrument, but you guys are doing amazing things, and thank you so much for coming and speaking to us. I know this is a little intimidating, but you're doing a great job.
Miss Ava, thank you so much for coming. Do you have anything else to say?
I have a question for you guys.
Oh,
Ooh,
here we
all right,
go.
come on.
This is
There we
where
go.
we're going.
There we go.
All right.
How does it feel to be? This is a very hard question to remember.
It's
all the
okay.
time.
It's okay.
You're so cute.
How does it feel to be a board member?
We're very lucky. We're lucky because we get to see kids like you.
Yes.
Very privileged.
Could you elaborate more, please?
All right. Okay, Miss Ava.
Oh, man.
She's coming out.
I can. We are so lucky.
Miss Ava, can you come to every one of our board meetings, please?
Considering that one of our students in the second grade just used the word elaborate,
Elaborate.
I'm feeling pretty proud right now to
That's
be a
right.
school board member. So congratulations to you and mom and teachers and all of our staff at Freedom 7. Good job. You know what? When you get to be a sixth grader and you get to be in the top group, are you going to play the violin or one of those instruments and come back and play for us? I think that would be most excellent. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Miss Ava, I want to answer your question. You know what? I love being a board member because I get the ability to change something for the better, and that's what we all should do. And I hope that that's what you take back to Freedom 7 with you, and that you make your school and your classroom a little bit better everywhere you go. So that's what's special about this position.
Good job.
Yeah.
Anybody else, Mr. Trent?
What I
Thank
like
you
about
for
this
answering
is
my question.
We all have answers. Ava, I wouldn't let him out. Only one has truly answered that question
1A
so
and
far,
1B?
so You hold us accountable.
Yeah, it makes our job so much easier when we put great students like yourselves up here and to perform. It really does make us proud that we're able to represent parents and students and the teachers that give us our BPS students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on,
Oh, I went.
You went?
We're good.
Ms. Jenkins.
Already went.
You already went.
So for me, Ms. Ava, I was a teacher years ago, and many of the things that I saw inside the classroom, I always wanted to advocate and change. So I was given the opportunity to do those through being a board member. So not only am I able to fulfill some of my dreams and some of the things that I wanted to change, but at the same time, I have children inside the system. So as I change them, I see those changes going forward with them. And I'm honored to have you and all of your fellow classmates here to play for us, because sometimes we in the school board forget what the most important thing is, and that's you. And sometimes the people inside the audience also forget that too, and we're here for you in the end. And I wanted to say thank you for coming forward, and thank you for asking the hard question.
Yeah.
You are awesome, and you are an example of what we would like inside of our schools. And I hope you come back and teach Jean and I how to play some of these musical instruments. So thank you. Everybody give her a round of
Thank you,
applause.
Miss Ava. Love her.
At this time, I'd like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Rendell an opportunity to recognize students, staff, or members of the community. Who would like to go first?
Do you want to give them a minute to? I think they've got it.
Yeah, they can go while we're. If you guys would like at this time, you guys can leave or you guys can hang out for a very exhilarating school board meeting that will last for another 2 hours. Completely up to you and your choice.
I can go.
Ms. Campbell.
All right. Well, I'll get us kicked off. Board, we've been talking about our health challenge.
Yeah.
And the district, the fall district-wide, staff-wide health challenge has started. It started yesterday, but it's not too late to sign up. The sign-up is extended till the 12th. But I would like all of us as a board, plus Dr. Rendell, who's already signed up, already joined the team.
I am.
And Paul, and if we want to have Lena and Allison join us too, and we can have Rana and Mary Jo, and like have the whole board, unless legal team has their own going on. But I want us to all join because we want to encourage all of our staff to join the health challenge. It's really important for us to get active. You just have to log your activity, whether it's lifting weights, taking a walk, doing yoga, cycling. And so we want to lead the charge. So Mr. Susan, you said you jump in. So the first thing you have to do is go to the email and you have to sign in. And then I'll add you to the team so that we can lead the charge for being our wellness initiative. I also want to recognize Mr. Bruner. Are we good to go? All right. We have a special employee who is here tonight because they were recognized. There was a parent sent in a special note and wanted her to be recognized. And so tonight we have with us one of our school bus drivers, Miss Jenny Jenwright. And here is what one of our moms said about her. I wanted to send an email to someone to just give a huge shout out for my daughter's bus driver. My daughter attends Melbourne High and is in the 10th grade. Miss Jenny has been her bus driver since last year. She always has a smile on her face. She waves happily to me every morning and every afternoon. And so just for being an awesome person and making the day of not just the student, but of the parents who have to turn their students over, to your trustworthiness and the job that you do, we want to say thank you and congratulations for that recognition. But we really appreciate you and all the other bus drivers for what you do every day. Thank you. And then Miss Jenny, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you very much. I was very surprised. I get cups and sometimes a little thank you, just little things, but that was very surprising. And I think the most surprising thing about that particular letter was just that it was for an everyday thing. It wasn't something unusual that I do. It was just waving to Mom every morning and every afternoon and smiling at her daughter, who's a high school student. When she gets on the bus and when I say goodbye to her. I think that a lot of the time we take for granted those kinds of things, and it was just really sweet of that mom to take a minute just to send a little email, and it made me feel really appreciated. So thank you for recognizing that. As a bus driver, I will tell you that this was not my dream job. This was this was the one job my husband and I both said we never wanted to do, and something that we felt like God kind of called us to do. And so we stepped into it really hesitantly. And I said I would do it for a year, and I've now been doing it for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
And I love it because I love the kids, and I love my coworkers, and I have the best boss ever. But I think it's a very rewarding job. I don't just get to say good morning to them. I think a lot of the time we think that that's all. Everybody thinks that's all we do is just say good morning. But they actually depend on us for a lot more than that. They come to us with a lot. You think that teachers hear a lot about parents, but your bus drivers hear a lot. We know a lot more than you think. We get to see them before their medicine kicks in. So we actually get to know them very well, and we love them and try to make sure that we're caring for them in a really big way. I think that a lot of the time we're overlooked in a big way for being appreciated in those kinds of ways, because you just think of us as a quick ride, and most of us are giving them a lot more than a 20-minute ride anymore. Our job has gotten a lot bigger than it used to be. Some of us are giving them a 45-minute ride. Sometimes it's more than that. So sometimes it's an hour or an hour. It can be an hour and 20 minutes, and there's one now that's even longer than that. So some of those kids are special needs, and we have to know their needs, and we have to know their tics, and we have to know a lot of things about them. So it's a bigger job than you would imagine, but we love those kids. So thank you for recognizing it. I really appreciate it. So.
Well, there's two good messages in there that I think we can all remember tonight and moving forward for all of us. And one is the little things matter.
Yes.
And then two, the recognition matters too. So
Absolutely.
thank you to you. Thank you also to this parent for reaching out and wanting you to be recognized, because those things make a huge difference in our organization.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you very
Ms.
much.
Jen Wright, hang
Yes.
on. You had said your boss is the greatest. Who is that?
John Davis. He's sitting right there.
I wanted Mr. Davis. You've been instrumental in some of the most recent changes that we had, implementing them. You and I were speaking on the phone to make some of those changes and protect some of our bus drivers. There's something special, Mr. Davis, you've created in your organization in the South area. And when that individual reached out to me to say, hey, this bus driver's amazing, we had to have you come in here. So we really appreciate you and everything that you've done. You were the first thing they see and the last thing when they go home to. And if you're doing an amazing job, it makes the teachers and all the other people, their jobs that much easier. So thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate you and how
Thank
you
you.
spoke about we, you know? So anybody else wish to speak to anything? No?
No, I love the fact that you said that this wasn't necessarily your first choice of a career, and that you went in maybe
No.
a little hesitant. I understand that, but
For sure.
when you're called to something and you got there, and 9 years later you're still there, and so thank you for intentionally loving on our children and making sure that they have a safe face, that somebody they can talk to. It's really, really important, and your job is just so big, and that's what I always think about, what a bus driver, what they do, and all the things that go on. I mean, I know I'm exhausted when I take a road trip. I can't imagine if you have, 60 kids in the car on top of a road trip. I'm thinking, my goodness. So you guys are heroes, and we appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Good.
same here as that you've been hearing is we appreciate you so much. And as a former classroom teacher myself, ourselves, just like some of us up here, it's we know the job that you have to get them to us first, and then we do whatever we do, and we send them back with you.
Yeah.
So so it's kind of a partnership. So, but again, thank you so much, and we need to cookie cutter your attitude towards the profession, and
Thank
I wish
you.
you the best.
Thank you. It's become quite one more little thing. It's become quite a team effort because we've been so short for the last year or two. It's a lot of us trying to fill in for each other. So it really is a team effort these days. So.
I just want to say I appreciate you as well, and I want to acknowledge your calm and euphoric energy that you give off. It's so important for our students, and I really appreciate that, especially mentioning how much tougher your job has gotten over the past couple of years with doing double backs, triple backs, and taking on more than the job you signed up for. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
very much.
I'm gonna come back to you, Ms. Campbell, you're good? Yep. Anybody, who's next? Gene,
Yep.
go.
I'll go. So,
Mr. Trent.
it's football season, and it's all about rankings. And I guess there's a football team in Florida that's in the top something or another. I think Florida State now number 4. So, but the rankings I like to see now is our schools. They're out, and I want to give a shout out to some of our Brevard schools in my district. Starting off with Edgewood, that was ranked number 2 in Brevard, number 7 in Florida, and I tried to get an exact number. I should have asked Dr. Rendells how many high schools are in Florida. I've seen numbers. It's thousands. So they're ranked number 7 in the state of Florida and 74th nationally. And as we look a little further, it isn't always the number 2 school or team that wins everything. So you got to look further down. And we've got number 3 in Brevard, which is Cocoa Beach Junior Senior High School. I know some of us out here have some connections to that school. Which is still number 91 in the state of Florida. And then Merritt Island's ranked number 8. So in my district, we have 3 in the top 10 in the state, or in the county. And they're still ranked 254 in Florida, which is still top 10% of the high schools in the state of Florida. So, and I know there's plenty of others from Brevard, but I can brag a little bit on District 2 there. So I just want to thank all the parents, because that's where it starts. And, well, obviously the bus drivers, getting them there. But as we all know, it takes a village for a school to come through with that type of recognition. So I want to thank everyone every day that puts in, from serving lunch, that breakfast, to the teachers, to the bus drivers, to the custodians, that we appreciate all of you. And, ultimately, we've got some really dedicated students in Brevard, so it's an honor to represent you. So I'm good there.
Great points there, Mr. Trent. Ms. Jenkins.
Yeah, I just want to do a public service announcement of something that I mentioned last time, but there is an organization called Do It for Hunter, and it's hosting its annual You Matter Day in honor of Hunter Haskins, a graduate of Merritt Island High School who tragically died by suicide. And today we are doing a resolution to acknowledge Suicide Prevention Month. And I promised his mom, Kelly, that I would make sure people were aware of this event that's happening on September 16th, and it's from 10 to 3 o'clock. And this is an organization that was started by his family and his friends to do their best to raise awareness about suicide prevention and to save other people's lives. And I left some of you guys this little bracelet that mom had given me, and on it, it has the new suicide prevention hotline, which is 988, which is one of her goals, to make sure that students and families, quite frankly, are aware that that's the new suicide prevention hotline. And it says the world is better with you in it. So it's a positive message for our students to be aware of. Aside from that, I do have a personal message I would like to share. I lost my mother 2 weeks ago, which is why I haven't been here. And I want to thank everyone who has sent me messages and, the kindness, people who showed up to my mom's funeral. I was blown away by the support of this community, and I'm not going to respond to all of you individually, and so I felt the need to at least publicly address that. And weirdly enough, there was a little sentiment here for me in the beginning, where Mr. Bloom, playing so beautifully, meant so much to me. My mother was a pianist, and often heard that in my house, and so sorry, I didn't mean to cry, but man, it means so much to me. I'm so appreciative of this community. Thank you to everyone, and I did read all of your messages, I promise, but I'm definitely not going to reply to all of you. So thank you.
Ms. Rutt?
Ms. Jenkins, I'm so terribly sorry about the loss of your mother, and I shared that with you earlier, and that's a challenge that, that's a heartache, and there aren't words to really convey, how sorry I am of what you walked through with that. So I'm going to change gears a bit first. I wanted to thank you, Ms. Campbell. I took your challenge. I am on day 3 of this, so I've put in day 1 and day 2. Day 3 today is going to be a little more challenging because we're here for the evening time, which is when I normally would be going on my walk and doing all my stuff. So I am taking your challenge up. Want to give a shout out to a couple of schools, though. So sometimes some of our schools get a reputation, and I hate that. The community will say something about a school, and then it spreads like wildfire, and then all of a sudden this school is a challenging school. This is a hard school, and I want to give a shout out to a couple of them that maybe are viewed that way. But when you go there, you would never in a million years know that that's what's happening, because the culture, the environment, the staff, I'm like, hey, what I want to say to our community is this. If you hear something like that, maybe that's a school that we intentionally love on, or maybe show up there and see if you can volunteer there, because what I find more often than not is that those schools, A, need your help, and B, have the most dedicated individuals that there possibly is. So got to spend some time with some of those, and I'm kind of contemplating if I should even name the schools now that I'm saying this and talking about it out loud, but maybe I'll keep those to myself, just for that reason. But I just want to say this. So if you hear something in the public about a school that's tough, or it's a harsh school, or things like that, go there and love on them and find a way to serve that school, because what I find more times than not, like I said, is there's very, very, very special people there. So had the opportunity to spend some time at these schools in the last week, and I just want to say shout out to them. They'll know who they are. If they hear this, they'll know, because I was there. So you guys are doing an amazing job in changing the culture and the public's perception of what is your school. So we commend you big time. And I'm going to leave it there, since I'm not going to drop the name of the school. So thank you.
Wanted to say thank you to everybody that came out tonight. We truly appreciate you coming and advocating for your various causes and for coming for some of these awards. I wanted to say to one of my favorite instructors, Mr. Bill McGinnis, I had the lovely opportunity of meeting your grandson on the way out, or on the way inside of the building today, and he was in the back with a couple of his friends, and the energy that he carries is the same as the energy you carry, and I just wanted to say thank you for being here today. I also wanted to say thank you to Ms. Campbell. The health challenge that, that we came up with, just so everybody understands, it's a way for us to advocate for all of the different health programs that we have inside of our school district. So by us advocating for these various things, it drives our education and awareness towards some of the things that we're doing with primary care networks and everything else with biometrics and all the other things, and staying healthy, because we know that when we're healthy, we achieve at a higher rate, both with educationally and in other ways. The other thing I wanted to say is that we have some special guests here tonight. And I wanted to take a second with Senator Mayfield and Representative Soroy. You guys have been champions for our school district, and it's been an honor to work with you and all the work you've done. I think Senator Mayfield, I can't count how many times you've come forward and brought forward opportunities for our school district and lit the fire for many of the programs that we honor throughout our regular days. And Tyler Soroy, Representative, you have been amazing throughout the process too. You've been right there when every time that there's needed a representative as a sponsor for anything, or when we were up in Tallahassee together presenting to make ROTC a career pathway in the education committee. You've been a true advocate for education, and you've been amazing in doing so. So I wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done, for being champions for Brevard. And I wanted to take a second. And with that, Dr. Rendell, I think you had something you wanted to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask Rachel Rutledge, our Director of Career and Technical Education, to come up to the mic. She's going to share some really, really good news for our district, and really, again, as a result of work of those partners of Representative Soroy and Senator Mayfield. So, Rachel.
Absolutely, thank you. Chairman Susan, members of the board, Superintendent Rendell, it's great to be here this evening. I want to start with just a really quick story, but I promise I'll be fast. Bill McInnish, some of his students talked to Lead Brevard last year, and I said, prep your students to have this conversation, but don't ask for money, okay? Don't ask for money. Do you know this man right here had his kids get on and ask for an airplane? That's what they wanted. They wanted an airplane. Well, he does not stop wanting things for his kids for the aviation program at O'Galley. So he decided to go after an appropriation at the state for a Piper airplane. Thank you to Senator Mayfield and also to Representative Thad Altman We are getting an appropriation for about $200,000 for this plane. So that's our first great news. Thank you so much. Also, of wonderful news this evening, we submitted an appropriation request to the state for the new aquaculture program, the Cocoa Beach Aqua Science program, and for $1.1 million. And that was supported wonderfully by Senator Mayfield and by Representative Tyler Soroy. And we could not have landed that opportunity without you. And you know, our state's mission and goal is to make Florida #1 in workforce by 2030, and y'all's support of our career and technical education programs is really helping propel us forward. So thank you for all you're doing. But I want to shout out just a little bit to them as well. These two here are not just pushing and advocating for us in Tallahassee. They're also grassroots involved. Both of them have reached out to me and said, let's take a student intern in career and technical education. So I just want you to understand that they are doing an amazing job supporting our students from that level as well. I know you care about kids, and we'll continue to support our initiatives here. So these funds are going to a great use. We've got a plane that, I mean, ask and you'll receive, right? We're getting a plane for the aviation program at O'Galley, and we are going to be breaking ground very soon on the Aqua Dome and the outdoor classroom, and there's going to be oyster and clams and mummy chugs, these little fish that are in our lagoon, and we are joining in the effort with all of Brevard to save our lagoon. So thank you again for your support, and I think we wanted to have a picture this evening.
I think we can give them the opportunity to speak at the microphone if they'd like.
Absolutely. Senator Mayfield, would you like to start?
Thank you, and I want to thank Superintendent Riddell for putting us on the calendar, and Chairman Susan and all the board members here. And before I do get started, Mrs. Jenkins, I am really sorry about your mother. I had not heard about that, and you know, the condolence that I can give you is, you know, recently Jimmy Buffett also passed away, and a close friend of his sent me a saying that I thought was so appropriate in grieving, and it was, grieving is like being behind a boat, and the wake is big in the beginning, but as the boat goes further, the wake settles down, and it will pass. It will pass. And from personal experience, I can tell you it takes time. So my heart's with you, and call me if you ever need anything, and I'll be happy to walk you through that process as well. But we are excited about being here, and I will tell you, it takes a team in Tallahassee to get anything done. If you don't have it on the House side, it ain't getting done on the Senate side. If it's done on the Senate side, it's not going to get done on the House side. And we have a great partner with Representative Soroy on the House side, as well as Representative Altman. But when Mr. McGinnis called me and said, you know, remember we talked about what we need to make this successful? Well, I need a plane. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? He said, a plane. And he said, a used Piper is all I'm asking for. So whenever our appropriations chair, and I went to my chairman of appropriations, and I said, and he looked at that, and he looked at that, and he called me in his office. He said, you're going to buy the school board a used Piper airplane? And I said, well, no, not really. It's a used Piper airplane for the classroom that Mr. McGinnis is teaching. And they're going to learn how to operate and how to take it apart, put it back together. So so there is some funny things that come out of some of the requests that we make. But I was so pleased that you called and asked us to do that, because it really did mean a lot to me to make that happen. And actually, you know, Tyler Soroy came to me, Representative Soroy came to me about the environment one at Cocoa Junior High School. And I just thought that was an amazing project that they were going to do. So that we are so excited to be able to participate in that. And hands-on is what it takes. And we have talked many times, if you get kids' hands in it, they get excited. And then they want to work on it. And then they're going to learn. And that's what we need in our education system, is to get them excited so they will want to learn. So I appreciate everything that you guys do. I appreciate you trusting us to do the work for you while we're in Tallahassee, and reaching out and letting us know what it is that we need to do. So thank you very much for allowing us to be here and be part of this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening, and Mr. Trent, I will tell you that the ranking of Cocoa Beach High School went up a lot higher after I graduated. So I don't know what contribution that made to the numbers there. But, you know, this conversation started quite some time ago with the superintendent when you were still principal at Cocoa Beach about the need for an aquaculture program at Cocoa Beach. And very excited to see it accomplished, along with the many things that we've been able to achieve now with the firefighting academy at Palm Bay High School and the construction academy at Cocoa High School. We have welding at astronaut and culinary arts. But there's a lot more for us to accomplish. There are a lot more boxes to check. I look forward to working with all of you to continue to deliver those opportunities for our students. And I will add, I have to say, I concur with the Senate's position, which is something that we say often in the House. But, you know, if you remember from Schoolhouse Rocks, and I always like to point to that as an example, in our system of government, it takes two members, one in the House, one in the Senate, in order to proceed with a piece of legislation. And I can't tell you, as a House member, truly have an excellent partner in Senator Mayfield. You know, at the end of the day at the Capitol, when you look at the building and all the lights are out, you can look up at the Rules Suite when you leave the Capitol courtyard and her office light is on. So usually I'll go up and pester her and say, what's the latest with our appropriation request? What's happening? But really a wonderful partner. And I look forward to the next session and seeing what we can continue to achieve for Brevard Public Schools. So thank you very much for having us tonight.
So much.
I think we have
I think we are going to do a picture out front real quick.
let's do it.
You acknowledge some of the programs that have been granted to Brevard Public Schools. I'm going to say this as gently as possible. You deserve more public recognition for doing things that are outside of your district sometimes, and for granting programs that significantly benefit our students when sometimes they aren't always granted. And it takes both of you, and I want you to know that that's recognized. And I think people need to know that, and they deserve to know that. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Here we go. That brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Rendell.
Chairman Susan and members of the board, on this evening's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, the final budget hearing, which includes a presentation, time for public comments, and items for board action. 1 resolution, 25 consent items, 2 action items, and 1 board discussion topic. Changes made to the agenda since release to the public include the following. Additions of items A9, final public budget hearing, A11, 2024 final budget, A12, 2024 required local effort, local discretionary, additional voted, and capital outlay millage resolution adoption. A13, adopt the final fiscal year 2024 budget. A14, the 2024 adopted millage levy adjustments. A15, forward adopted millage levy resolution. A16, forward budget documentation. F24, the annual financial report for fiscal year 22-23. F25, the investment performance report for quarter ending June 30th, 2023. F26, budget amendments for June 30th, 2023. And F43, the Astronaut High School Construction Management Services contract. Revised items include F32, the 2022 U.S. Department of Agriculture National School Lunch Program Equipment Assistance Grant for school food authorities, and F33, the 2023-2024 Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program Grant.
Thank you, Dr. Rendell. Do I hear a motion? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Hold on,
Oh.
I'm just gonna say it now, just ahead of time, because I know our, one of our discussion points is gonna be like a long one. So I just wanna say in advance that I have something that I wanna talk about after that.
Okay.
Because I know we're probably, at the end of it, we're gonna probably wanna close out, but heads up.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that brings us to the next. We have a National Suicide Prevention Month proclamation that I would like to read at the podium and have individuals that are a part of this please come.
My mic's on.
As a heavy sigh. My mic was on. I'm like, where's my mic?
National Suicide Prevention Month. Whereas September is designated as the National Suicide Prevention Month as recognized by the National Association of Mental Illness. And whereas many health officials and community leaders locally, state, and nationally understand that mental illness is a significant issue of concern, particularly among our youth. And whereas we realize that in order to address mental health issues requires more open and honest discussions about mental health. And whereas one major hurdle is removing the stigma attached to mental health treatment and discussion. And whereas parents, teachers, administrators, coaches, mentors, public officials, and peer students recognize the importance of emotional health. And whereas we can play a valuable role in assisting others who may show symptoms of stress, depression, anxiety, or mental illness. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Brevard Public School Board supports the education of staff, parents, and students on symptoms of and help for mental health problems. And be it further resolved that the Brevard Public School staff will be encouraged a positive, safe environment and encourage helping others while also promoting access to school-based mental health supports and recognizing them when young people are at risk for are experiencing mental health problems. Adopted by the members of the Brevard Public School Board, Brevard County, Florida, at the regular board meeting thereof held at the 7th of September 2023. With that, you have the floor.
Good evening, and thank you, Chairman Susan, board members, and Superintendent Rendell. Your attention to this problem means so much to those wrestling with mental health issues and to those who have considered taking their own lives. Often, with the later, it's because individuals feel that they can't get help, or they believe they don't have someone to talk with through the problems. I'm from the Space Coast Health Foundation, and we have been working on this problem for years. According to the Florida Department of Health in 2021, the age-adjusted rate of suicides per 100,000 people in Brevard was 19.4%. That compares with the state rate of 13.8 per 100,000 people. We don't know why the rate is higher here in Brevard County than many other parts of the state, but we're committed to lowering those figures and letting the community know that people on the Space Coast do care. You may have recently read about a program, thanks to the support of Senator Mayfield and Representative Soroy, that the Space Coast Health Foundation is working with Brevard Schools Foundation on an initiative called Thrive Within that is meant to build resilience and address mental health issues early versus on the back end when matters can evolve into something much more serious and tragic. We will have some exciting news to share with you on this initiative in the weeks ahead. Our goal is to establish a model for the state when it comes to early intervention programming for mental health. We want Space Coast residents to know that we do care about mental health. This resolution shows that the Brevard County School cares. Thank you again for doing it.
Thank you. Actually, stay right there. Does anybody wish to have any comments? I think, Ms. Jenkins, you had mentioned you wanted to speak to something.
Not this, no.
Thank you for the work that you all are doing. I look forward to hearing the efforts that you and the Brevard Schools Foundation are put together. It's always good when our community organizations are cooperating to get this done for the good of our students and raising awareness. So I appreciate it. I shared on my Facebook page today just an article that I found was helpful for parents, conversations that we need to be having with our kids. It's uncomfortable, hard conversations, but those conversations may be something that save a life. So any parents who are listening out there, especially parents of teenagers, it's time to start having those conversations and checking in, because we just never know without those conversations what our students may be going through, and right under our noses. So very much appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron. I just want you to know that Brevard Schools Foundation has been an amazing partner through this.
Ms. Wright?
Yeah, I want to thank you as well. So suicide is one of those things where I think pretty much everybody can name someone who's been impacted by suicide, and it's such a permanent decision for a temporary problem for a lot of these kids, and it truly is a community that it's going to take to really resolve this. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how this partnership works and how we can change those numbers, because that breaks my heart to hear that Brevard is higher than even our state average. I want that to be 0. We don't want anybody walking down that path. They're not alone. People love them and care about them, and sometimes they just don't know that. And so making sure that we convey that to them is really important. So I'm excited about this partnership, and I'm hoping that we can move that needle to the other end so we don't have as many. Thank you.
Just that, thank you for what you do, and I look forward to seeing this partnership happen. I'm happy it is, and if you need anything else, you have our support. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I truly appreciate you coming up. I truly appreciate you bringing forward those statistics. When I was a teacher in 2008, I was honored to introduce the J. Kyle Braid program to Space Coast High School, in which at the J. Kyle Braid program they had a child who had committed suicide, and the level of mentorship that was able to be brought to the school to discuss that was something that I think is much more powerful than sometimes us adults speaking to the children, is being able to collaborate with the students to be able to identify and bring forward some of those conversations. So I think what part of the conversation that we forget is to not only have those tough conversations like Ms. Campbell had said to the students and to our children, but then also to the children to say, hey, if there's somebody else that you see, go out there and give that helping hand, make them feel a part of it and find out. Because I think sometimes we forget to mention that to our children too. So I wanted to say thank you for everything that you're doing, and thank you for coming. And anything that we need to do from our end, I think you've got a 5-0 vote pretty strongly. So just start asking. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Need a
Doc-
motion.
What's that?
You haven't adopted it.
Oh, we have to adopt it? All right. I'd like to, do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Dr. Rendell, would you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, there are 2 items for your consideration.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize 2 individuals. The first, congratulations to Jonathan Belitho, who's a new assistant principal at Roosevelt Elementary. Jonathan, congratulations. Come on up to the podium.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the school board and school district for approving me for into a leadership role. I also want to thank my family who is here with me today for their support and rooting for me to reach my goals and strive to always give my all to the community and the students I've always served. I want to thank past and current administrators. I have had the pleasure of learning from and working with Christy Boyd, Tana Phillips, and Carrie Castillo. Thank you to my friends and coworkers I have met that challenge me and push me to be the best teacher, professional, and leader I can be. I also want to thank a mentor from afar, Matt Montoya. They have all provided me with great leadership opportunities and mentorship to help me prepare to take on the role of assistant principal. Finally, I want to thank Elizabeth Brodigan and the entire Roosevelt family for giving me the opportunity to continue my career as an assistant principal. Over the past 8 years, I've had such a great experience of working with such amazing students, teachers, and families at Quest Elementary School, and I will definitely miss that opportunity with that community. However, I'm also very excited to take on the role of assistant principal at Roosevelt Elementary School, and I look forward to continuing to build upon the great successes for that school community. So thank you very much.
Congratulations
Thank you.
again.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Now I'd like to congratulate Larry Wayne Lawrence Jr., who is a new interim assistant principal at Cocoa High School. Come on up to the podium. Congratulations.
First, I'd like to thank Dr. Rendell, Superintendent for Brevard Public Schools. I'd like to thank the school board. I'd like to thank Mr. Reamer, Ms. Weibelt, and district leadership team members for this leadership opportunity. Next, I'd like to recognize my family, my mother, Dolores Lawrence, my father, Larry Lawrence, and my sisters, Sharon Lawrence and Kimberly Burns. Next, I'd like to sincerely thank two outstanding school leaders who have mentored me through this leadership journey. My previous principal, Jennifer Gonzalez of Titusville High School, and my current principal, Denise Stewart of Cocoa Junior Senior High School. Because of these two amazing educational leaders, I will ensure that every student achieves academically, and I will encourage each student to reach their hopes and dreams. I'd just like to say thanks again to all for this opportunity. Tiger Pride.
Well done, Larry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good evening. This is the second and final public hearing for the 2023-2024 proposed millage rates and final budget. The hearing of September 7th, 2023 is now in session.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, you guys. Ms. Lisinski, if you guys will come down. Now we'll move to the presentation of this hearing. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, Ms. Cindy Lisinski, Chief Financial Officer, will make a presentation on the proposed 2023-2024 budget and millage levy. Ms. Lisinski.
Okay, good morning, good morning, good evening. It's been a long day. Good evening, Mr. Susan, board members, Dr. Rendell. This is the second and final hearing on the FY24 final budget and FY24 millage. I did want to highlight Diane Lichtenstein, who is our Director of Budget, and our Director, Rich Miller, of Accounting. Both these individuals have taken on these roles from people that have been here for, I don't know, 20 years. And they're both doing such amazing jobs. They're bringing in positive initiatives, positive change. They're building processes with the eye for efficiency, and also making sure that, you know, how can we take this burden off the schools? How can we help train the schools? How can we do things better so, you know, they can, principals, teachers, everyone can focus on teaching our kids? So very passionate about their work. They are, I can't say enough, their leadership. They've also had to carry, you know, their departments with some major gaps in folks that have resigned or moved on. And I just can't get over their positiveness, and they've built great rapport with the schools, with the directors. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to work with these two individuals. So. So tonight's public hearing agenda will include this presentation of the proposed millage rates and the FY24 budget. It will also have an opportunity for public comment and board member discussion. And then we will adopt the total millage levy as well as the adoption of the 24 final budget. The truth in millage legislation requirements are detailed under Florida statutes. Trim timelines are very prescriptive in law, and the clock started July 1st. The total timeline to budget adoption is 80 days. The statute dictates the order of the business during the budget hearings, and trim requires 2 public hearings for open discussion of the millage rates and the proposed budgets. Millage is a term that represents the tax rate levied on real estate or other property. 1 mill is equivalent to $1 in taxes per $1,000 in taxable value. If your home has a taxable value of $100,000 and you're assessed a mill tax rate, you will pay $100 in taxes. The Florida Education Finance Program, or FEFP, is a mechanism by which state and local operating funds are allocated to Florida school districts for financing Florida school districts' operating costs. Funding for FEFP combines state funds primarily generated from sales tax revenue and local funds generated from property tax revenue. Required local effort is the local amount of funds the district receives from levying the state certified local millage rates on the district's taxable property. It is key to understand that the Florida legislature sets the required local effort millage rates, and the school board must levy that RLE rate to receive state funding under the Florida Education Finance Program. The proposed required local effort for Brevard set by the legislature is 3.135. The required local effort rate adjusts year to year and is normally less than the previous year. The discretionary operating millage is fixed at 0.748, and the local capital improvement remains fixed at 1.5 mils. New in the statute is a requirement for school districts to share proportional share of LCI funding with our Brevard County charters. This change will be phased in over the next 5 years, and this year we anticipate allocating over $500,000 to our charter family. The Brevard County voter approved millage in an additional 1 mill that our community overwhelmingly passed during the November 8, 2022 election to enable the district to provide competitive salaries for our teachers and other dedicated employees. So the total proposed millage related to school funding for 2024 school year is 6.383 mils. Using the proposed millage rate at the 2024 taxable property value, our total projected tax levy is approximately $428.4 million at a 96% collection rate. The required local effort and discretionary millage make up the local operating funds. The capital outlay millage is levied for local capital improvement, and the voted operating millage is predominantly for competitive compensation for our employees. The RLE makes up close to 40% of our FEFP funding at $210.1 million. The full basic discretionary millage will garner $50.1 million. For school districts that levy the full .748 mil and it generates an amount of funds per FTE that is less than the state average, the school district will receive a discretionary millage compression supplement in state-funded dollars that brings the district to the state average. In the case of Brevard, the state compression calculation guarantees $795.19 per FTE, so we will receive an additional $167 per FTE, or $13.4 million in state discretionary funds. The voted millage is new this year and will provide increased compensation for our employees. After proportionally sharing with our charter schools, BPS will receive an estimated $57.6 million. 80%, or $46 million, will be allocated for compensation for all employee groups. 16%, or $9.2 million, will be allocated towards student programs, and 4%, or $2.3 million, will be allocated for technology advancement in the classroom. The local capital improvement millage, or LCI, will provide the district $1.2 million. $37.7 million comes off the top and will be used to pay the district's debt service, which covers principal and interest payments for previously bonded debt that was issued primarily between the years of 1996 and 2008 to build schools and provide for major renovations at our older schools. LCI contributes $11.3 million towards maintenance costs for labor. LCI will also pay for the district's $9.9 million for property tax, which leaves approximately $4.16 million after charters for facility projects, equipment, vehicle, and school bus replacements, as well as instructional computer technology. This slide depicts the historic millage rates over the last 12 years. Since FY 2013, the millage rates have declined each year as our property values have increased in the county. The orange area represents the fixed basic discretionary operating rate. The light blue depicts the fixed local capital investment rate, and the dark blue depicts the variable RLE rate that has been adjusted down each year. The green box represents the voter-approved 1 mil operating millage rate. As required by TRIM, we must compare the proposed millage rate to the rollback rate. When property values rise, property taxes generate more revenue. For the total revenue generated to stay the same as the prior year, the tax rate must decrease. The rollback rate is the millage rate that would generate the same amount of revenue as last year if applied to the current year's adjusted taxable value. Said another way, the state rolls back the rate as property values increase to bring the total dollars available roughly equivalent to the prior year. Under TRIM, rollback rate is the benchmark for determining if tax rates have increased or decreased. The rollback rate is generally less than the proposed tentative rate. When the rollback rate is less than the proposed millage rates and we receive from the state, we must advertise a tax increase. For Brevard Public Schools, the proposed millage rate is 26.53% higher than the rollback rate. This slide depicts the annual certified school property tax values from FY 08 to current year. FY 09 was the highest annual tax roll prior to the Great Recession. Property values have increased each year since FY 13 with a significant changes post-pandemic in FY 23 and 24. Heading into 2024 and into the out years, the issue of millage will become even more critical due to the recent sharp rise in property tax rolls statewide. Over the past 2 years, the statewide school taxable value has increased by 20% in 2023 and 15% for 2024. The legislature has taken advantage of those property tax roll increases by increasing total FEFP funding by 5% and 9% over the past 2 legislative sessions. Yet heading to 2024 legislative session, the statewide tax roll is currently estimated to grow 3.17%. The Economic Demographics Research Office, their draft long-range plan projects growth in the out years will gradually improve from the point as monetary policy begins to ease and interest rates become more favorable. While the new growth rates are slightly lower than previously anticipated, the new estimates for 2025 and 26 are based on a 5.14% growth and a 5.53% growth. This slide depicts our debt service. By state statute, school districts can use up to 3/4 of the LCI for lease purchase agreement debt payments. This would equate to 1.125 mils or $74.8 million. To maintain minimal debt, board policy limits debt payments to 1 mil for each fiscal year. Under the board policy, the current debt service ratio is a healthy 1.74. The proposed FY24 budget is balanced and is our best estimate of revenue against expenses and is not money in the bank. We built this budget understanding our priority is providing an excellent education and personal growth for all students. We also considered several challenges that cause uncertainty. The impact of school choice legislation regarding enrollment changes and growing pains of new business processes that will account for Family Empowerment Scholarship, FTE, will be challenging, and it's now embedded in our district FEFP. The impact of FY24 being the last full year of ESSER funding and efforts to bridge any gaps is something that is ongoing. And lastly, we considered inflationary cost increases and the need for increased compensation and pay benefits and retirement plans. This is a high-level summary of the FY24 all funds budget. The general fund is where most operating expenditures are paid. In addition, tonight you will approve budgets for debt service fund, which is used to pay for the outstanding bonds of the district, capital projects fund, which accounts for major construction and renovation projects, special revenue fund, which consists of food services, federal grants, and schools' internal accounts, internal service fund, which accounts for the district's health insurance, property casualty, and workers' compensation programs, and the enterprise fund, and that is for our Brevard after-school program. So this last slide highlights the key indicator of the health of a school district, which is our fund balance. And then you can see on this slide for operating that our fund balance increased by $7.4 million this year. If you remember last year in FY22, we were lean and the direction was to lean forward, and we had to compensate our teachers and our employees for doing more work than we could really ask. And so we leaned forward, and we also weren't held harmless and had reduction in enrollment. So we spent about $17 million from fund balance last year. And this year you can see that we are making our way back up. And I'm very, very proud that the Fitch ratings on Wednesday, August 16th, affirmed that Brevard County Schools ratings are stable. And they also talked about the results and maintenance of reserves that provide strong financial buffer against unforeseen revenue changes and other budgetary challenges. And our rating is considered very high credit quality. And so this is something that we need to continue to do. We need to robust our fund balance even more this year because there's more uncertainties. Are there any questions?
I don't think anybody has any as of right now.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do? Ms. Campbell?
First of all, thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Ms. Leichenstein and Mr. Miller, for the work that you guys do. Very much appreciate you too. And I thank you for, we just had that policy review of policy 6145.01, so I appreciate you talking about the debt service ratio because that's kind of an outside of the realm of my expertise question. Can we go back to that slide?
Oh, sure.
So our policy says we want to keep our lease, debt service ratio to 1 mil. So if we're at 1.74, is that the same?
Yeah, so that ratio is actually very good.
Okay.
And then you can see that our debt service is 37.7 million payment this year, and 1 mil of LCI is 66 million. So
Right.
we are well under that 1
So
mil.
we're like 0.5, something like that would be. So I guess I'm understanding the 1.74 part. And I'm a math person, but I'm trying to make sure I understand what this slide's telling me.
So it's the ratio, it's the two numbers divided by each other.
Gotcha.
And then if we use the state statute, our ratio would be very, very close to 2, which is very, very good.
Okay, all right.
So that's just telling you that, we are pretty healthy. And
Good.
the Fitch ratings also talked about, there it is, long-term debt and pension liabilities are very low relative to the revenue and remains stable with no additional debt plans above average debt. So we're doing really well.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And it was really important for us to secure favorable rates when we did the short-term financing for the new middle school. So that was very important.
Right.
Also wanted to thank you for we've increased our reserves because board policy says we need to have 3.5% of budget in reserves. And that number had remained stable for the last several years since I've been on the board, and I was like,
Right.
Our budget keeps going up, but that number doesn't move, so thank you for fixing that, because now I think we're at that 3.5%. I noticed it in the budget adjustments that you sent us,
Right.
and that are on the agenda, so thank you for taking care of that as well, because it's important to have those strong reserves for our credit rating, for emergencies, for whatever may come along when the future is so uncertain, so I appreciate that.
Good. Okay, Ms. Losinski, continue.
We're done.
I am done.
All right. The hearing is now open for public comments on the 2023-2024 proposed millage levy, followed by the 2024 public final budget. Is there any individual who would like to address the board on the 2023-2024 proposed millage levy? Okay, come on up, Mr. Bryant.
And I may have missed this during the presentation, but can you tell me what was the budget impact of that was based on school choices? What was the revenue impact on that? Do we have that number?
What I would ask is if that presentation was just given by Ms. Losinski, if you could meet with Ms. Losinski and ask her where inside her presentation is that.
Okay.
And give that to you.
Then
That
my
would be-
second question is, looking at the budget, I didn't hear the numbers that were in the budget for technology advancement for classrooms. Can you tell me what that number is?
Mr. Bryan, I
I'm
would
sorry.
say, no problem, I understand where you're coming from. If you can ask Ms. Lisinski for those questions, she has them back there at the table, and she can give you more of a breakdown into deeper inside that presentation.
And the reason I'm asking that now is that I may be asking it as well, can we increase that number? So if I have a side conversation with her, you would understand what my question is. So
Absolutely, and I appreciate
is
you
that
bringing it.
is that an opportunity to have that question answered now? I really need to understand what is that money level is, so that maybe I
Mr.
can
Chair,
ask
if
the
I
question
could-
to the board.
Yeah, Dr.
So one thing that I think we've talked about before is the additional property tax. Out of that money, some of that is set aside for technology.
Right.
If you recall in the budget presentation, that levy, that additional levy is going to bring in about 67 million, and I believe it's 2 million of that is set aside for technology advancements.
Okay.
Mr. Cheatham, does that sound about right? Right. And Mr. Cheatham's actually going to be presenting his proposal about how to invest, spend, allocate this $2 million very soon. And a lot of it's going to be focused on classroom technology,
Yes,
which is,
and
I believe, what
appreciate
you're
that.
driving towards.
But my question is, with the 2 million, my question, I don't think that's enough.
Well, there's additional money already set aside in the budget. That's just the money from the additional property tax levy.
Okay.
So we could give you the total number, and if you don't think that's enough, you come back and tell us.
I appreciate that. I just want you to understand the community concern, and I've had some background discussions, but I want the board to understand that we are looking at that number, and based on 85 or 87 schools, the technology, you're looking at maybe $10,000 per school, and I don't think that's enough money to cover the technology needs, especially where every child can have the opportunity with upgraded technology. So that's kind of why I'm asking that
No,
question.
I hear you, and I think that's one of the reasons we carved out some of that additional property tax millage just for technology.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want the board to understand, I can have a side discussion back here, but I want the board to understand, as well as you, Dr. Rendell, what are the community's concern in terms of that amount of money? So,
Yep.
Yeah.
to be discussed later on.
Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Mr. Brown. Anybody else wish to speak onto the board on the 2023-2024 proposed millage levy? Hearing none. Next up, is there anyone individual who wishes to address the board on the 2024 final budget? Is there anybody who wishes to address the board on the 2024 final budget? The public comment portion of the hearing is now closed. That will bring us to the recommendations for the adoption of the 2023-2024 proposed millage levy in the final budget. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Per Florida Statute 200.0065, it requires each taxing authority levying millage to publicly state the name of the taxing authority, the rolled back rates, and the millage rate to be levied prior to the adoption of the millage levy resolution. So in compliance with those requirements, the following needs to be stated. The taxing authority is the School Board of Brevard County, Florida. The 2023-2024 rolled back rates are as follows. The required local effort is 2.9808. Local discretionary is 0.6867. The capital outlay is 1.3770 for a total rolled back rate of 5.0445. The total millage rate to be levied exceeds the total rolled back rate by 26.53%. The proposed 2023-2024 millage rates are as follows. Required local effort of 3.1350, local discretionary of 0.7480, the additional voter-approved millage of 1.0, capital outlay of 1.50 for a total rolled back rate of 6.3830. There are a total of 5 separate motions. I will read each of the recommendations into the record and request board action. The first, adopt the resolution setting the required local effort, local discretionary, additional voter-approved millage, and capital outlay millage rate of 6.383 mils for 2023-2024. The written resolution is incorporated into this motion by reference.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just briefly to address the concern by Mr. Bryan. This particular motion is just to approve the tax rates, which pretty much are already prescripted for us. The other, I did want to address something that's really more related to budget. I will tell you that the percentage that was of the 4% of the additional millage, as Dr. Rendell mentioned, we have money in the budget, the regular budget, that is for technology. We also have money in our sales surtax budget, which has greatly increased our speed that we can get the devices, and we're one-to-one across the district. But this will be additional for in the classrooms. Things like, I hate to speak out of turn, but maybe the, what do you call those boards? Promethean boards and things so that our classrooms actually have the capability to take those kinds of things. I will tell you that my concern with changing those percentages is it was presented to the public that this is how we're going to divvy it up. It was presented to our employees as well as 80% towards compensation, 16% towards student programming, and 4% towards that specific type of technology, which is classroom technology. To change that percentage, to me, would not be appropriate because that is what our voters have approved and what we have said we were going to do with it. So, thank you.
Anybody else? What I wanted to say, Mr. Bryant, is I hear you 100%. Some of the things that you'll see is this. It's just like Ms. Campbell had mentioned, there's a moving target because you have money inside sales tax, you have money inside of the capital budget that allocates for that, and it's different to each year depending on inside the capital budget which schools would like a different project. So they might go to a Google Classroom in this school one year, and that may come out of the capital budget, right? Then you've got school matching funds. So the schools will actually make an appropriate, and you'll see the PTO will go out and raise money for a technology program that the county will match. Then you'll see regular operating budget, where we allocate, like you're seeing in some of the percentages. And then you also see the amount of money that comes out of an allocated school budget that we give to each school. So what I would like to do is ask, let's look at what is currently being spent on it for the different projects, because not only the funding that you're looking at, but then also understanding what each one of those programs are and the why behind them is a definite appropriate question to ask, and I appreciate you coming here today to do so. I just wanted to let you know it's kind of like a moving target. Like, it's not just the $2 million here and the $4 million there. There's a lot more that goes on, including our innovation games and all the STEM competitions and drones and everything else. So I would love to have that conversation with you. Thank you for bringing it up. Okay. Anybody else for discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Dr. Rendell.
The second is to adopt the 2024 budget in the following amounts. The General Fund, $803,457,583. Debt Service Fund, $37,939,756. Capital Projects Fund, $439,095,551. Special Revenue Funds, $227,855,555. Internal Service Funds, $105,840,969. The Enterprise Fund of $7,412,863, for a total budget of $1,621,602,277.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you. The next is to authorize the superintendent to adjust the adopted millage levy and budget due to changes in the certified tax roll.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Dr. Rendell.
Thank you. The next is to authorize the superintendent to forward the adopted millage levy resolution to the Brevard County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector no later than 30 days following the adjournment of the Value Adjustment Board.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. Dr. Rendell.
The final is to authorize the superintendent to move forward the following to the designated state agencies: Number one, the adopted budget, millage levy resolution, certified tax roll, rolled back rates, proposed millage, and certified copies of the advertisements for the proposed budget and millage rate to the State Department of Education. Two, the millage levy resolution, certified tax roll, rolled back rates, the proposed millage, and certified copies of the advertisements for the proposed budget and millage rate to the Department of Revenue.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, I've been asked to take a break. Public hearing is now going to be adjourned. Let's take a break and we'll come back in a couple minutes. you. We are now on to the public comments portion of the meeting. On the agenda, we have 9 speakers. Therefore, each speaker will receive 3 minutes. I will call up 3 at a time. The first 3 speakers are Robert Ray, Bernard Bryan, and Gregory Ross. Please come to the front.
Good evening. It's great to see everybody. You should have a report in front of you that I've authored. There you go. And most of you are familiar with AI or artificial intelligence. It's all over in the news, but probably less so with the application GPT-4. If you please turn to page 2, you'll see an explanation of this. The organization that OpenAI has developed this tool. It's Generative Pre-trained Transformer 4, or GPT-4. As you will see, it offers tremendous benefit for educators. I issued 10 requests, as listed on page 3, dealing with lesson planning, creating and grading quizzes, generating essay prompts and grading essays, and communicating with parents and students. The complete responses that I got from GPT-4 are found on pages 4 through 19. Please examine the first request and the response on pages 4 and 5. You will see that the request that I made is a quite complete and appropriate lesson plan that I asked for, and it was provided. Please turn back to the bottom of page 3 to read my suggestions that I have for you. With your permission, I'll read them for those that aren't viewing the report. Provide educators should be made aware of the many benefits achieved through the use of GPT-4. Hours can be saved. Responses by GPT-4 will have to be edited to adhere to curriculum guidelines and individual classroom instruction. Currently, the use of GPT-4 on Brevard systems is blocked as it is with Facebook. Perhaps this should be mitigated. Although students and anybody can access GPT-4 through their cell phones. Currently, students are mostly unaware of GPT-4. I did a recent survey of 150 students, grades 9 through 12. About 20 had heard of it, and 5 said they had actually used it. This included an AP calculus class. This will change quickly, of course. It would be beneficial for educators to be ahead of this. Establishing an account and downloading GPT-4 using Google is very simple, and there is no cost. Students will be able to use GPT-4 to complete assignments out of class. The temptation for plagiarism may be a concern. However, it's not in your report. There is an application called GPT-0 and another one called Zero GPT that will analyze any given electronic transmission and tell you whether or not AI was used in it. I used this application on the very report that you're looking at, and it came up with 28.4%, which is much, much larger in this application. So it's not quite there yet, but it still works. Now, just for fun, I asked what I should purchase for my 6-year-old granddaughter's birthday. Some of the sections are at the end of the report.
Sir, I want to let you know that your time period has concluded after the 3 minutes. I appreciate it. Very interesting topic. Thank you very much. We'll take a look at that and send us an email, and we'll respond to you. Thank you. Mr. Bryant. Mr. Ross is on deck, and then David Kearns.
Thank you, Dr. Rendell, and thank you, board members. I'm here for about 3 issues tonight. The first issue I would like to discuss. First of all, I'm so sorry of what happened at Vieira High School. It's a tragedy, and I just want this board to understand that the community is really feeling the pains, not only for the victim, but also for all the kids that are involved. And I just want to thank this board for taking the opportunity to gather all the players and all the parents together to try to work through this. But I'm also going to ask you, and I do understand Privacy Act, you know, what you can share and what you cannot share. But I'm asking this board to be very transparent as possible, because a lot of people saw the hurt on that mother face yesterday, how she felt about her son. And we understand other parents are feeling the same thing. So I do understand transparency has to be protected, but please do the best you can to make sure every child that's involved get the right service in order to actually recover. And then secondly, I want to talk about the education gap. One of the things that I always going to stand up here before you, I'm still concerned about the reading and math levels. A lot of our kids are not doing well. So I'm going to encourage you to look at the training of our teachers. I know there's a lot of teachers that have joined the staff, and I hope that Brevard Public School has a robust training plan for all those teachers, because if not, the burden is going to be on that local principal. And then lastly, I would like to share with you, I have a concern, and one of my basic concerns is the lateral transfer of teachers. And what I see happening in the schools that I support, when a teacher said, I want to move to one school to another school on a lateral condition, that have a tremendous impact on that student. And I do understand promotional opportunities if a teacher is being promoted, but I think we really need to understand what's causing the lateral movement, because the key to this is that where there's instability at that school level, it's going to impact that child. So please take a look at that, look at the causes of the lateral transfer, because I understand based on my operation experience, if you got an unstable operation, it's going to impact your operation. So please look at that for me, and I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Mr. David Kearns, please. Beverly Marker is up next. Or Greg Ross, David Kearns, then Beverly Marker. Sorry.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for the opportunity for public comment tonight. Kudos for Suicide Prevention Month and having a resolution and recognizing that and recognizing the mental health issues that our youth are suffering from. I think it's a great lead into what I want to talk about. So LGBTQ youth. Suicide is a huge problem among them. They are more than four times as likely to commit suicide as their peers. So how does this fit in? I want to issue a challenge to this board. I'd like to see this board recognize Transgender Awareness Week in November 13th through the 19th. So I'm putting that challenge out there. Let's see if you guys take it up. I'd like to see you do multiple things for that Awareness Week. Some of which would be hosting events or workshops that provide information and support for transgender students and their families. Collaborating with local LGBTQ organizations and advocates to ensure a well-rounded and informed approach to transgender awareness. Encourage teachers to incorporate discussions of gender identity and transgender issues into their curriculum during Transgender Awareness Week. Display banners or signs within our schools to symbolize our commitment to transgender inclusivity. Recognizing Transgender Awareness Week is not just an opportunity, it is a moral imperative and a demonstration of our commitment to inclusive education. By taking this step, you would declare your dedication to creating a nurturing environment for all students and promoting a culture of empathy and acceptance. I challenge this school board to rise to the occasion, embrace Transgender Awareness Week, and be the champions of the change that our community deserves. That's what you wanted, Ms. Wright, right? Is to get up here and be able to make a change. Here's an opportunity. I challenge you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Mr. David Kearns, Beverly Marker, please.
Good evening. Sometimes I wonder whether you guys are just trolling us or what. I mean, you've blotted over to serve every student with excellence with a check, and that might answer some of the questions I have. But here are my wife's questions. Why are they using the word hazing instead of aggravated child abuse? Why was the coach relieved of duty but still allowed to teach? Have the offending students been expelled? I know you can't release their names, but have they been expelled, suspended? How does the school board handling of this event square with the mission as stated on your sign? If offenses such as this don't warrant a student being disciplined with suspension or expulsion, what types of offenses would? Surely the offending players have at least been banned from the team. If not, why? So my questions concern your absolute handling of this event. This event seems to be deliberately mishandled. I listened to the pained words of the mother, and as a former coach and as a parent, I'm appalled that the chairman called the mother and didn't offer any solutions for the child, didn't offer any counseling for the child. We talked about suicide prevention. Have you checked in on this boy to see if he's near suicidal? Has anything been done for the child who was in this video and then the image broadcast the entire county? Immediately to go back to football. I'm a coach. If that had happened to my team, I would expect my program to be canceled for the year. Didn't happen. That's a question I have. I just don't understand that at all. It seems to me, time and again, this board deliberately mishandles almost as a method to troll the public itself. I mean, you're going to get sued, you know, and then who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for that is the citizens of Brevard County. That's who's going to pay. And once again, we're going to have our reputation dragged through the mud. We're going to have MSNBC down here. We're going to have Al down here. We're going to have, and again, it seems a brilliant opportunity for school board members to go on Fox News and talk about how they're being picked on by the left. You had a child that was aggravated assault in a locker room, and we're just going along like nothing. We're going to pick up football because it's more important to us than the interest of a single student. This is a fine welcome that this board and this school system has provided for this family coming into Brevard County. It's appalling. And I don't understand what you're doing. And the only way to look at it is this deliberate mishandling of this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns. Ms. Beverly Marker is up next.
I attended the school board meeting last month. Prior to attending it, I had seen the video of the young man that was sexually assaulted. I'm also aware that that was repeatedly shown over and over again on social media, which subjects this child to further abuse and humiliation. His mother got up and spoke out of pain and passion. I firmly believe that after her speaking, that someone on the school board, either superintendent or the board chair, should have expressed at least their regret to the mother about what happened to her child, and assured her that this would be looked into and addressed. No one did that. But what I did see happen was when one of the cheerleaders got up, and there were several here, to express her concern that maybe the football season would be canceled, several of you enthusiastically applauded her. Where are your values? Where is your compassion? Shortly after the incident, I understand through news media that there was a meeting between the parents, and I don't know if the students, the football players attended it or not. According to the news media, and remember, this was shortly after this happened, that board chairman Matt Susan said that it was important to make sure that the season is not canceled. And we've got to make sure that this is an individual or isolated incident, because if it's cultural, then that may prolong the season. I'm reading that from Florida today. I agree with the man that spoke before me. You have done a lousy job of showing any compassion or any concern or letting the community know what's going on. No, I don't expect you to name names of the students that are being involved, But this family deserves justice. What kind of a future does, I think he's around 14, 15-year-old kid who is publicly humiliated, sexually assaulted, and pretty much the whole community knows what happened to him? That's not anything he's going to get over right away. This board has an obligation to do something to correct the wrong of this incident, and they better quit dragging their feet and thinking that they can shove it under the rug, because there's a lot of people in the community.
Thank you for your time.
No, there
Mr.
was
Paul
a
Rao,
there was a
please come to the
second when you
front.
shut me.
And Miss Samantha Curvin's up next. Thank you very much.
Evening. Is this on?
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Thank you. So I want to follow up with some comments that were made earlier. Again, saying thank you. Do appreciate the acknowledgement of suicide awareness. Obviously, there's no one cause or we'd eradicate it. There's no magic wand we can wave to, in a perfect world, make that a non-concern or reduce it across the board. There are many, many factors and many different people, but there are things that we know can lessen the risks or increase the opportunity for help. And there are things that we know that can make situations worse. And some of those are in your control, or some of those are levers that are being moved to the state level, but you have voices to speak about these things. In particular, it's true at all ages, but particularly among school age youth. LGBTQ students, teens in particular, are up to 4 times as likely to attempt suicide. LGBTQ teens are 2 to 2.5 times as likely to experience severe depression and suicidal thoughts. Among those who do not feel affirmed, accepted in their communities can experience those feelings at up to 8 times a higher rate. And those who are bullied will experience those feelings at something like triple the rate of those who are not. Needless to say, a lot of the new policies in the state are not encouraging towards inclusivity or feeling affirmed and accepted in their community. And to the degree that you have control, to the degree that you can reduce that risk, please do. To the degree that you can speak up, which is as much as you want, please do. And additionally, Harvard and other studies have found that there's a significant reduction in the action on suicidal thoughts when people read about others with similar experiences. And some of the books that have been challenged and now banned recently, some of the stated reasons are because suicide is included. And despite the protests of people at the meetings who made it clear that these books had helped them for that very reason. So again, let's get the book review committee back and let's have it in good faith. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Raub. Next up is Samantha Curvin, and then finishing us off will be Kelly Curvin.
Hello. Okay. So, fun fact, today's my birthday. So I'm 15.
Happy birthday.
Huh?
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I got my permit this morning, so now I can drive. That's fun. Matt Susan and Megan Wright. You said earlier that you like being a school board member to help better our schools, correct? As a BPS student, I'm here to tell you that it's unfortunate because in my perspective, you're incorrect. you're not really bettering our schools. You're kind of making them worse. Yeah, that's kind of it. I have a meeting I have to go to, so bye.
Thank you, Ms. Curvin. Ms. Kelly Curvin, please come up. Thank you.
Not going to be quite as brief. I apologize. Good evening, everyone. People far smarter than me say you should always start a speech with a thank you. Ms. Campbell, as a resident of District 5, I'd like to thank you for your strength and resiliency in the face of misogyny, gaslighting, and bullying. During the last board meeting, I, along with many women across this district, were horrified to watch Matt Susan attack you for refusing to substitute your opinion with his. We don't agree on a lot of things, but that doesn't mean I'd sit by idly and let that behavior go unchecked. We all watched what happened in Indian River County last week, and make no mistake, Brevard's time is coming, and it's 100% your fault. This board changed in November, and you've reviewed 3 books. That's it. You've refused to adhere to your own policy. You've refused to update the policy based on the new legislation, and you've refused to acknowledge your own efforts to stall this process as the books are banned with no end in sight. You've bowed to extremists who represent a minority of parents, which has been reflected in counties across the state and will show in Brevard too whenever you get around to making that permission slip. If you want to do what is best for our students, you have to stop making knee-jerk reactions that ultimately harm Brevard Public Schools' image and our students. What these people want is attention, so stop giving it to them. Operate how you have. Let them read their books and show no emotion as you had a couple weeks ago. When you don't give them what they want, they go away. Changing policies because of a minority of voices of extremists is what has gotten this board so much negative press. Please don't make that mistake again. As someone who's been deeply impacted by suicide, I appreciate that this board chose to highlight teen suicide rates. Ms. Wright, you said you're surprised and horrified that the rate of teen suicide is so much higher among Brevard County youth. I'm not. And not for the reasons you may think. Obviously, dead-naming our students is going to cause trauma. Pulling resources from the library is going to cause harm. Supporting our governor as he continues to make anti-student, specifically anti-LGBTQIA students, is going to make the already staggering 1 in 5 suicide rate among non-binary and transgendered youth rise. But did you know that literacy is also a factor? Our youth with dyslexia have a risk factor of 46% over their non-dyslexic peers for suicide attempts. Please think about that the next time you vote against a contract to bring in more speech-language pathologists. You've taken up dyslexia, Ms. Wright, and trust me, I'm not getting in your way, but I expect you to know that dyslexia is a language-based disorder and that the best interventionist isn't actually a reading coach, it's a speech-language pathologist. And obviously, I read that a lot faster. I really hope that you guys address what happened at Vieira High School and stop sweeping this under the rug. You're making Brevard County look awful. And I get that that seems to be what y'all do best, but for the sake of our students and teachers, stop it.
That concludes our public comments on agenda items. We would thank you for your willingness to address us in this manner. This moves us on to the consent agenda. Dr. Rendell.
There are 25 items under this category.
Thank you, Dr. Rendell. Does any board member wish to pull any of the items? Hearing none, no items will be pulled for discussion. I will entertain a motion to accept the consent items.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. Dr. Rendell, would you please let us know about the action portion of today's agenda?
Yes, the first item is H46, department/school initiated agreements.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Dr. Rendell.
The next item is H47, procurement solicitations.
Do I hear a motion?
To approve.
Second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All opposed? Nay. We will move on. I said no nays. 5-0.
Oh, I thought you
Passes
said
5-0.
nay.
Sorry, that did sound kind of weird.
Yeah.
No, 5-0. We will move on to the information agenda, which includes items for board review and may be brought back for action at subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items today. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 2 items into this category.
Does any board member wish to discuss this item? Or any of these items?
There's nothing on there. I'm like, there's nothing attached.
Oh, you know what? It was the food nutrition grants that got moved to
Yep.
the consent agenda.
Yep.
Agenda.
That's correct.
Does anybody wish to address them? No?
No.
All right.
Yay for food nutrition.
There we go.
Yeah.
Moving on, we're now at board member reports, legislative platform issues for discussions. I put that on there just to sort of get some feedback and discussion. The idea would be that we would discuss today, and what I sent out was, hey, is there anything that's hot and red that you guys are wanting to bring forward, and discuss a little bit of it. So in the past, what we've done is staff brings forward a list of recommendations. We kind of throw around a list of recommendations, and then we decide on like a top 3 or a top 6. So today's just a kind of a conversation about what we've done in the past, see if there's anything anybody wishes to like really hunker down on. But the idea would be that we would come back on the September 19th, and at September 19th, we would say, okay, these are the ones that I want, you want, everybody else, then we can collaborate, make a discussion, and go off. They're already in the process of setting up the committee weeks. They're already passing, introducing bills. There's a lot of stuff going on in Tallahassee, so I thought it was appropriate to bring this forward. Does anybody wish to discuss any of the items that they may have or not? Ms. Campbell?
You know, I hate to do it in a pell-mell fashion, but, you know, in the past, we've kind of gotten some recommendations. I know usually we have an appropriation that we ask for related to CTE or another program. I'd like to see those from staff. I know that Ms. Lisinski sent us all the recommendations by the organization, and forgive me for forgetting the name of it, of the organization that all the CFOs across the state, the school district CFOs, but there was one particular that stood out for me, and that was regarding the funding of the scholarship students. This year, the legislature set aside a big chunk of money in reserve in case there were more scholarship students, because there was an unknown number, so that it wouldn't affect us negatively when we have the proration. But that wasn't guaranteed to continue to be in future years' budgets. And when we have those prorations, the challenge with the scholarships is that if a student takes a scholarship, they get the full amount of the scholarship, but then if they end up coming back to one of our schools, we don't have funding for that child. And so whereas if a student moves from one district to another district, because we count twice and they do the different counts, it doesn't work quite the same way. So it really puts districts at a severe disadvantage. So I would be in favor of just asking the legislature to make that more clear with the funding of the scholarships, so that there's always that kind of separate bucket, and it's not thrown in with the same bucket of how we get funded as school districts and charter schools and all of that, so that if there's a crazy increase or decrease, or students move from one kind of education to another kind of education, it doesn't harm us. And I may not be saying that in the right words, but it was worded better in the white paper that Ms. Lisinski presented to us. But that was one thing that I struck on that I would like for us to include. And then the other thing, we had some, if staff had recommendations for deregulation, because we were asked, then I would love to see those, because there's so many that each of them deal with in their individual departments. It would be helpful for us to have any specific that they're really longing to see. That would be helpful.
I can tell you one that is kind of at the front of everybody's mind right now is the permission form.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if there could be some clarification on which activities really need a permission form.
Right, and I know I spent a good deal of time fussing about that a few weeks ago myself, because I believe, you know, our students are having to fill out a form so they can go to tutoring before school, and if they walk, you know, to the door, you know, they're having to turn away if they don't have that form turned in, and it really puts students at a disadvantage who have that harder time getting those forms from their parents. And I know I talked about that last time, but I'm in favor of us asking that to be refined as well. That was not a legislative call. That was a State Board of Education call. So if the legislature would come back in and say, no, that's not really what we meant, this is what we meant, that would be helpful.
Anybody else got one? Ms. Campbell also sits on the advocacy committee for the Florida School Board Association. Have you guys met on anything yet?
No, but we are meeting soon for our first meeting, and I've got it on my calendar. I can't remember which day. It's one of these Fridays, and coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I'm happy to take those recommendations as well to turn in. Yeah, and to speak to those. Like I said, I think we have like 2 Fridays away, 2 Fridays from tomorrow maybe.
If it, I would like to see what comes out of that meeting. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to come back on the 19th, but if you haven't had that meeting yet, maybe we look at waiting, or maybe you can bring what would be proposed there to our meeting ahead of the conversation, and maybe we could go there.
Right.
I value the FSBA's advocacy committee.
Yeah, it's the 22nd, so we won't have met yet. But
They'll put an agenda together and they'll get it.
Yeah.
So we can talk about those items if you would like. I know we'll all get it, so. Ms. Jenkins, did you have anything that you had on the list that you'd like to talk about for legislative stuff?
No, I mean, if I'm being brutally honest, I haven't had much time to prepare and think about
Okay.
this meeting, but just forgive me for my ignorance here, but I feel like we have talked about the reduction of drills over and over again, and I remember that they were supposed to be making moves on that. Do we know if that ever was finalized?
We can make a check.
Like, I know
there
that was initiated, and there was like some process that was happening, but I don't know if we ever got a follow-up that they
There were
actually
some
reduced
adjustments
them.
and some variances to it. Maybe we can get an update. and
Yeah,
bring that
I would
back
like an
in a
update
couple
on
of
that.
weeks. That would be good.
Because if not, then let's, remind them.
Yeah. Is there anything else anybody would like?
No, I honestly, I would like to come back on the 19th with this so I can take a little deeper dive into this.
Yep.
I've been in budget world for a little while.
No, and
With
that's
numbers,
what
so.
today was not to say that you guys got to bring forward your list. It's just today's like, here's what the process is. Staff usually will bring forward. The one thing, Dr. Rendell, I would ask is when I went across the street to give the presentation to the school or the county commission for like our here we are kind of stuff.
Yep.
One of the things is that the staff had, like, they were also giving presentations. So next year, when that time comes, if it does, if we can all be together, because I felt bad, I felt like I didn't even know they were back there. So in the event that people are making requests to the legislature, we just all do that together, right? The other thing I would say is that if they're going to make requests, that we all come together, because sometimes they spin out and they come, you know what I mean? They start making them, and that way we can advocate for them, because when you're in the halls of Tallahassee and all of a sudden somebody says, well, you know you guys have this over here, and you're like, oh man, I didn't know, you know what I mean? So, and that's not anybody's fault, it's just what was happening, so we can get that taken care of. For me, I would really like to focus on supporting the deregulation. For me, knowing that we have so much paperwork, so many things that are redundant that are killing our staff and our people, I would love to get involved, and I'll probably be honest with you guys, those submissions were already due, but it doesn't really matter, because when an open committee happens, everybody starts bringing
Right.
forward all their recommendations. I'm going to focus heavily in that area, because I feel like we can reduce the workflow of our people. Some of the ridiculous things the Good Idea Fairies have come up with over the couple of years. You know what I mean? And that's where I was going to focus. But we'll bring back all of our ideas if anybody else has one.
Yeah,
Ms.
I would
Campbell?
just say, Mr. Susan, I would like to request, and I think staff had talked about that before, that we try to go back to what we had done in the past, which is try to have our I mean, it's fine to go to the meeting across the street, but we have before had our own separate meeting with the delegation, the ones who would come, and host them at one of our schools, feed them lunch, and then have a conversation with them across the table of presenting our legislative agenda to them, in person with, so we a little more time with them. And I think they've been such good partners, and they always enjoyed it. In fact, I had Senator Mayfield ask me about that. Hey, can we? And actually, Tyler Soroy asked me. Representative Soroy asked me the same thing last year when I was in Tyler. Are we going to do that again? They enjoy it, and it gives them a chance to come to one of our schools. And so if that's something we can set up again, around the time we usually do it. We had done it in the past on the same day as the meeting across the street, so that keeps a busy day for them, but at least they're all here, all in town, and it's just, real close. So if we can set that up, Dr. Rendell, I'd love to go back to doing it that way.
I'm going to plug THS real fast if I can, because they have a cordon bleu chef and an amazing culinary department, so if you need a location.
I think I'd like.
Wait, what did you say, Titusville?
I'd like to mention that I did do that last session. I requested that, and it came back out that one of our board members was involved in a lawsuit with one of the state representatives. So they refused to meet with us unless that.
That
person
is an
would-
inaccurate
No,
statement, Mr.
Just hang on,
Susan.
because this is true.
No, it's not true, Mr. Susan.
Just Miss Jenkins.
Mr.
So-
Susan, there is no lawsuit. There never was a
Mr.
lawsuit.
Mr. Gibbs.
One at a time.
Thank you. So what was said is that there was somebody that was involved in a lawsuit. I asked if there was any way we could overcome that. They said only if the individual that was there, part of that lawsuit didn't come. I said, we come as a board. I support my board. I told them that that wasn't fair. And so what I said was we would go to the county commission and I would present there. So in the event that that can be cleared up, I would greatly appreciate that, but that's exactly what happened. I thought that we as a board are together, and I didn't want to not do it together, so that's how we ended up
I would
there.
like to suggest, Mr. Susan, that Dr. Rendell and Mr. Brune can handle it, and if we put an invitation out to all of our delegation members and one of them doesn't want to come, they're welcome not to come, but I don't want us to not extend the invitation to everybody else because one has decided that they don't want to be a part. So let's plan the event and have it be a y'all come and go ahead and do it. We don't have to hang our opportunities on the whims or the desires of any one delegation member.
Just so you know, it was not just one delegation member, it was by the delegation, and I never spoke to that individual about it, and it was actually the chair and the individuals that were in charge. So I think we as a board stick together. We don't actually allow one of us not to be a part of stuff, so I believed in that, and I think we should continue. But if they would like to do that, that is always the optimal part. And just so you know, Mr. Brune had tried to do it, and that's why I got involved and asked the reason why. So moving forward, I just wanted to kind of mention that so that everybody understands in the event we moving forward that we run into that problem again. I think that we stick together as a board and we don't allow it to divide. So with that, do any other board members wish to have any information to report or discuss?
I do. Yeah, but I'm also going to follow up on that statement. You've made this statement in the past, I've corrected it in the past, and you continue to make the same statement over and over again. Representative Fine makes false statements over and over again. Miss Jennifer Jenkins has never sued Representative Randy Fine.
Ms. Jenkins,
Mr. Susan, I
there
am
is-
speaking. You've made this statement multiple times. Multiple times. And I'm pretty sure there's members of that delegation would disagree with you that they made that statement, seeing as though I speak to some of them. So be careful about the accusations that you're making very broadly. And yes, Ms. Campbell, I would like to go if you have something to do after you. Yeah.
Ms. Jenkins, I would say, just so I can verify those conversations if you would like, and I would verify this. We need to stick together as a board, and we work together as a board. And that's it. Ms. Campbell?
So if we're going to do that, there's certain things we don't even need to bring up. They're not beneficial. You remember the initials. If something is true,
It is true.
necessary, all of those things. All right. So I wanted to bring up something to us board. Some of you, related to the email that Mr. Gibbs sent out to us about what happened in Indian River County last week and the new state law that with all the updates, legislative updates that we had over the last couple months, somehow I missed that clause, but there's the new piece of House Bill 1069 that says the legislature has said that parents should be able to read content from a book they have an objection to in a public meeting. So I have 3 levels of concern about this, and I also have a suggestion that I'd like to bring. And we don't have to make, obviously we can't vote on this, but it's something we could give direction, or if you guys want to think about it, and if it's okay, we could add it to Tuesday's agenda to have a continued conversation, but maybe there's some consensus we can come to tonight. We have what I believe is what we had. We still have to do some tweaks to it with the new legislation, but I think our policy 2521, which is our instructional materials challenge policy, I believe we've done good work on it, and what some people have done in other districts is try to use this new law, this representative, to kind of do an end run around the process that we put in place, that the state requires us to put in place and that we have put in place. I think we have a good policy and a procedure now in Brevard that we're going to have to tweak because of the legislative updates, but it's generally a good policy. There are some other counties that aren't moving. I understand, I guess, why this legislature did some of it, because there are some counties that aren't being as proactive about the book challenges, but it affects us. But I don't like the idea of people doing an end run around process and procedure and policy. So that is one level of concern. We have that state law that we have to, because that preempts ours, right? We also have a public comment policy that says no obscene, vulgar, whatever language. That law overrules that part of our public comment policy, but we just have to deal with it. There's also federal guidelines, the FCC guidelines, which I went back and looked up this week, that talk about the kind of content that you can broadcast between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. And then some things can't be broadcasted at all. And we do not just YouTube, we also have on our Spectrum channel, I'm not sure if I'm going to use the right words, Mr. Maroon, but we broadcast this live in multiple ways. And those are very specific rules. I believe they're good rules that were put in place that were meant to protect people, especially children, from accidentally coming across material being exposed to objectionable content. So I know that there have been some people that made statements like, because I see it all around, if you can't read in a public meeting, it doesn't belong in our schools. It's a simple statement, but it's really too simple for what we're talking about. And the reason why I say that is there are parts of, for example, Huckleberry Finn that I wouldn't want somebody reading in a public meeting because there's some colorful language in that book that I read when I was in the 5th grade. There are some biographies of some of our Black American heroes that are going to include the N-word. Are we going to, I don't want that content read in a public meeting, but I don't think we're about to pull every book that might have content that we wouldn't necessarily want read in a public meeting. There's some acts of violence that I wouldn't necessarily want somebody reading from the podium. And so, so it might not be, are we going to pull every book that has more violence than we might have taste for? And the way it's written, it could be just one of us. It could, the chair runs the meeting, so if the chair finds the content objectionable, then it's only one of us making that call. So I'm not comfortable with the mix of all of that the way we're doing it right now. So I'd like us to be a little proactive and think about, what if this happens here in Brevard? I have a suggestion for us. My suggestion would be that we cut the live feed for our public comment time. Stick with me, because I know our public, when we did that a couple years ago, they came hot and unglued from all sides of the political spectrum. No, they want that videotape. It's not done in many places. In other school districts and other governmental entities, they don't. There are plenty across the state that don't broadcast their public comment time. But to kind of take care of that side, because our community has been very vocal about they want it. We could cut the live feed for public comment, and we would have to do it in motion over the next couple meetings. I was going to do it tonight, but we didn't have anybody signed up, so I thought we had so much going on in the meeting, I would push it off to now. But we could still record them. And for example, like when we go on recess, you know how the screen says the board is now in recess, it could say the board is now hearing public comment. We could still record them, and they could be posted on the board page of the district website with a content warning, so people know ahead of time. So we're still recording, and people can still see them at a later date as soon as they can get them uploaded. But that way we're not broadcasting them live, which is why the FCC rules would affect them. So I think this would be something that would take care of the desires of our community, which is they want the public comments recorded and be able to watch them. It would satisfy FCC guidelines, so we're not allowing content that we really don't want to go out over the airwaves, and brought in that 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. period. It would satisfy state law, because we're allowing parents to read the content. It would help us stick to the book challenge process that we have established, and what I believe is our, we worked real hard to make that policy right, and it still needs revisions, and we still need to go back to it. So I think that's what I'm going to propose as a suggestion, and then whatever we decide we want to do, somebody even suggested to me, maybe we have a separate section for book challenges, and we cut the cameras off then, but I think, the email that Mr. Gibbs sent to us was, it's just easier, it's just better, legal challenge-wise, to treat everybody the same, and whatever public comment time, whatever you're coming to talk to us about, let's treat everybody the same. So that would be my suggestion, that we'd make that vote, whatever we decide to do, and then if we decide that's what we want to do, we work into changing our public comment policy if we need to. I don't know if it's in our policy that we're going to videotape it, but
you know, we'd have to talk about that later. So that is my idea, and I just want to throw that out there for discussion.
Ms. Paul, can you speak to some of those points from the legal end, since this is the first time we're hearing this?
What do you got questions on?
Some of her statements were, we can shut off public comment, record it, do all
Right.
those things.
There's-
Where's the legal end on
Yeah,
that?
there is no legal right to be broadcast over the air during a meeting. You don't even have to broadcast the meeting at all, and some public entities don't broadcast their meetings live. So that's perfectly fine. As she mentioned, there are several counties that don't broadcast public comment. They don't record public comment at all, so they have like a sign up on their screen of some sort, like public comment.
What's going
So that's all legal and fine. If you want to record it, that's fine, and post it later, you can do that. I would have to double check the policy. I don't remember the language off the top of my head as far as what amendments, if any, would have to be made.
All right, and then I think that piece, because it's the first time I'm, you know what I mean, hearing about it. So if you have some information you'd like to bring to us, I mean, I've always supported a board member that wishes to try to bring something forward. So, you know, if you want to try to bring something, then I would entertain it. Doesn't mean I support it. But what do you guys, what's your thoughts?
I'll chime in on the discussion. And Paul, I guess I have a couple questions for you on this one. House Bill 1069 specifically, how well versed are you with this?
I've read it numerous times. but
Numerous times,
I don't know
okay.
that I have verbatim committed to memory. But
So my understanding of that bill is it pertains specifically to sexually explicit content. Is that correct? Or is that just,
there is a provision in there that says that if the board stops someone from reading a book that's been challenged or objected to, then it's automatically removed from the shelves and no longer allowed to be used. So
Okay.
there is a provision in the amendment to that effect.
the book must already have been in the challenge
Right.
process?
So, you know, we had a
Would-
public member bring up, they read from it at the last meeting or two.
Yeah, I remember the
Yeah.
same ones that don't want us to ban books were read from the
Right.
dictionary. I
Yep.
remember, very
So
familiar with it.
And that was kind of their point. If that book had been challenged, then since
Mm-hmm.
he was stopped from reading, it would have had to been pulled from the shelves.
Right, right. And so so Ms. Campbell, I hear what you're saying, and I understand how this is like a very topic, right, going there. Here's what I'll say about this, and this is where I stand. I don't know where everybody else is. One, I'm never going to be in favor of limiting our public comment to the actual public, because I believe there are people on both sides of the aisle of this that need to hear what the public says, because they can't get here for one reason. I'll tell you, even when it comes to the book banning, people that are on my side, your side, the left, the right, wherever side you want to say, people that would align with me closely have been like, what's up with the book banning? And I'm like, well, nobody's banning books, number one. Saying it's not age appropriate is not the same thing as banning it. Just same as we don't let a 10-year-old drive a car, doesn't mean we're banning them from driving. It just means it's not appropriate for the age that they're at. So with that being said, I think everyone needs to hear it if that's what happens. I mean, I would hope that the public would honor the process, but I understand the frustrations, because let's face it, how many years did it go on and how many books were reviewed when it was the other way around? How many, I mean, to my knowledge, huh?
There was one challenge before I got on the board, and over the last couple of years, there weren't any. So it really is kind of a new phenomenon.
Yeah, well, when I got on the board, there was roughly 40 that were in the queue
That
to be
was me.
challenged, and I don't know the exact time of when they came about, but it didn't happen quickly. It didn't go through quickly, and so I hear what you're saying as far as like wanting to protect potentially somebody from hearing these things, but then I still go back to that mindset of, if they can't say it in this room, then it shouldn't be in our kids' hands or accessible to them at our public schools. If a parent wants to give it to them outside of there, that's their right to do so. But for me, like, I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's not fun, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, I think the legislation has been very clear on having to do it this way because of some of the districts that have gone around and circumvented the process and slow rolled it and made these, done all these things. So it's like, okay, well, how about this? If you can't read it in a public meeting, common sense would say it's probably not appropriate to be in the hand of a child.
I will tell you, I feel very strongly about, because of the kinds of things that I don't want people saying the N-word in our board meeting.
Absolutely.
I don't want people using the F word or any other things.
Right.
But but the way this is written, forget FCC rules, my personal standards, I don't want that coming out of our public, but the way that is written, if someone reads a book, I don't think we're ready, then we really have two choices. We can say in the moment, if that happens, we can say, I'm going to go ahead and stop you right there. And then we're saying that book is gone.
If it's already been challenged. That's what Mr. Gibbs is saying. It has to have already been on the challenged list,
Right,
correct?
the language is challenged book or
Okay.
objected to book, so. yeah.
Okay, so they turned it in. Either way, if it is challenged, then we have that call. We're making that decision right now without knowing the context. And the context might be, it's a biography about, one of our Black historical figures. I don't want that coming out over the airwaves, but I'm not ready to remove that book because it's historical. I'm trying to give them examples of times where I could think of that we wouldn't want it read on a broadcast, but we don't need to completely out of context with a 3-minute snippet make that call as a board when we have a process and a committee of people who are doing it. So, and I hear what our community spoke loud and clear a couple years ago. That's what I said about us not, and I'm the one who made the motion that said, okay, never mind. They've all said loud and clear. Let's not turn the cameras off. So that's what I'm suggesting. Don't turn the cameras off, but let's put it somewhere else, because we do have kids who are walking through while their parents, our teachers, our principals watch board meetings while they're fixing dinner or whatever. I would hate for that to happen and them to be subject to that content, because we either have to let it play, we're breaking FCC rules and potentially exposing children to that kind of objectionable content, or we have to go ahead and make the call, I'm going to stop you, and then that book's gone. And I'm not comfortable with that part of the process either. So, because I just think when we think about the statement of, well, if you can't read a public meeting, it shouldn't belong to schools. It's the reason why I think that statement's too simple, because we're thinking about the books with the really graphic, explicit sexual content, but there's more than that we wouldn't want read, but we're not ready to yank it off the shelves without any context. So,
I'm gonna
Are
be
you
even
finished, Ms.
more
Campbell? You good?
that was just
broad.
Are you finished, Ms. Wright?
That's okay, go ahead. Let them.
Well,
I think everyone needs to speak to this, so.
Yeah, no, I think we do. I don't want to keep bouncing back and forth all night, so.
So I didn't go yet.
I know, I was going to give you the
So,
opportunity. I just want to make sure the others are
I'm going to
finished
be a
before you
little
cut
more
in.
broad. So, number one, if it can't be read in a boardroom, then it shouldn't be on our library shelves. Doesn't apply when we can't control who's sitting in our boardroom, who's sitting at home watching it. There can literally be a 3-year-old there, and this is a book that I might think is appropriate for a high school level, or is only in our high school. So it's not about if it can't be read in our boardroom, it shouldn't be in our schools. We literally cannot regulate the audience if it's being live streamed, and we're responsible for what they're consuming if we're putting it out there live. I'm going to come out this from a perspective of the reason why I'm against removing most of these books is because of the parental choice piece. If you don't believe that your high school student should hear it, and Ms. Smith doesn't believe it, that's their choice, and then their student doesn't have to choose to take it off the shelves, but then you're removing that choice by allowing someone to read it aloud. It's counterintuitive to the point of removing these books in the first place, because you're forcing people to hear it who, in my opinion, when it stays on a shelf, has a choice to read it or not. And we may not agree on this issue, but that concept doesn't make any sense. It's counterintuitive. I was one of the board members who was against turning the camera off from day one. I never was for it, but this law didn't exist. I think this law is intentional. I think it is intended for people to circumvent policies that were put in place. I think it is for people to abuse it, to come here to say things that they know that they're going to stop. They're going to challenge books ahead of time before they come and read them. We already have somebody who's asking for people to anonymously challenge books that they made a list of. I mean, we know what's going to happen, and I think it's irresponsible of us as an educational institution to broadcast things that we all agree won't be appropriate for a 5-year-old to hear if they're walking in the room with their parent. I think that's really irresponsible of us. I'm with Ms. Campbell though. Like, if it gets removed, I still think it needs to be recorded. I'm not cool with it not being recorded at all, because again, I've never been the person who wanted to turn the camera off in the first place. I hate that we're here. I think it's silly and stupid. And again, it's going to be abused. It's going to be abused, like Ms. Campbell is saying, for for using it as an example to challenge books that, you know, all we ever hear about is sexually explicit, but it will be used to challenge books that maybe aren't, and then come here and read it, but it has inappropriate words and language in it that could really impact the curriculum and access for our students. So unfortunately, because of this law, I'm gonna have to agree with Ms. Campbell on this one, unless there's a different solution. Because I don't trust that it won't be abused. And I mean, if you wanna, I guess I would probably entertain like seeing what happens first, seeing if it gets out of control, and then responding to it. I mean that's fine too. But I'm definitely not opposed to Ms. Campbell's idea. But if it happens one time, I'm absolutely going to be 1,000% on board with Ms. Campbell, because it's just not right. It's just not right to do with families.
Are you finished? Ms. Jenkins?
I am, Mr.
All right,
Susan.
Mr. Trump.
All right. A little bit from everyone, honestly. It is going to be taken advantage of and abused by all people. I mean, both sides of the aisle, as we witnessed with the dictionary reading, and it's going to be that way. I'm glad we're not making that decision tonight. I mean, we can't control the audience, so Ms. Jenkins, you're right on that. I mean, some of the books are not going to be appropriate for elementary school kids. If there's any of them out there ever watching a school board meeting, that's only my question. But it is a shame, maybe. I mean, we wonder where our kids do get shaped and molded, and I do wish we would have the ability to read more of what our kids are exposed to in the schools. You know, as a parent, have you ever asked your child, where did you hear that before? You'd hate to say, it's because I'm reading it in class. So to give the people, the citizens, the ability to get up and speak to that is kind of intriguing. I think we shouldn't be shying away from that. I would have a tough time shutting anybody's public comment off. I mean, I think we're just used to it here in Brevard. There are other counties, like Paul, you said, that don't do it at all.
Yeah, there's some that have never allowed or broadcast their public comment, so that's where they're coming from. That's what they're used to. So.
Yeah. So that's, we're gonna have to really go out and talk to some people more, and you know, maybe play it by ear and just let it go. And our chair may have to really know what books are in the review process.
Never. I'll read all of them before they come in, I guess.
But yes, this is you know, and I think we need to maybe be schooled a little bit more on House Bill 1069 to see exactly if we're missing anything. I think that's important also. Not that I'm saying.
Yeah, I can shoot it out to you guys.
Oh, I got it.
I'm reading it right now.
Yeah, we have it, but thanks. So anyway, that's
page 13.
This is the discussion that
Thanks.
we need to have it, because it could get out of hand quickly for no other reason other than people trying to prove a point, because they have nothing better to do on a Tuesday night. So that's about it.
Or Thursday.
Or Thursday night.
Ms. Campbell, if you can kind of clarify what you would like to happen, that way
Yeah.
we can see if we want to do
Well,
that.
I had pulled up our policy really quick to see if we had anything about videotaping, and I don't think we do, because we had put it in when we revised the policy for that brief month and the meeting, then we never actually shut the cameras off. We took that right back out. Correct, Paul? So I don't even know if we need a policy revision, but you know, I absolutely am for recording it, especially for this reason, not only because our community has asked for, they want to be able to see it, and I'm assuming, you know, our meeting, things can get uploaded very quickly, but the other thing is, if the chair were to ever stop someone, then that results in then the public needs to be able to see that process, right? So that's another reason why, since our community is used to it being recorded and all of that, you know, they're very actively watching this process in particular. That's why I would want to make sure it is recorded, but just not broadcast. Because like I said, I personally, and you know, it was brought up, oh, FCC, will they, I don't, the law is the law. And I, as a conservative, I think is a good law not to have this kind of stuff going out over the airwaves, to protect children and audience, you know, on a, you know, television live stream. And so you know, that is what I would like for us to do, is just to make that call. Like I said, it didn't happen tonight. The play it by ear thing, it's a little dangerous. I mean, we can, like I said, I actually looked tonight. I'm like, hey, can we see the topics? If somebody was going to had a book on tonight, I was going to do it tonight, because the last meeting we had one, but I think we had 2 or 3 the meeting before, and that, like I said, I just don't want to be a part of sending that out over the airwaves. I'm just not comfortable with that. We have a process. I'm also not comfortable with us having the highly graphic sexual content in our books. And I'm, you know, I've been a champion for that too, but we have a process. And we have decided we've got them removed while they're in the process, and then we need to move it faster. And I'm with Mr. Raub. I want us to get the process and get it going. I know everybody's waiting, and bless her heart, you know, Ms. Harris had a lot to do since she's taken on this role, and that we've had to wait for the State Board of Education rules. We've had to do, you know, so she's bringing it to us, right, shortly. Yes, ma'am. So we can get it going. And honestly, the committee was ready for the next book. My suggestion is, as long as we don't have to change anything with the makeup of the committee with the new rules, that we have them ready to go, have a committee meeting the day after the policy gets passed, so that we can go ahead and move on it. But my suggestion was, if we've got some consensus, not enough of the board members want to go ahead and make that decision now, or if we want to punt the decision to later, but I don't want us to get caught at our next board meeting in 10 days, 12 days, and we haven't made a call, and all of a sudden we've got people lined up to read content that would break FCC guidelines.
Can I ask
and we've got to make a call.
Can I ask Mr. Gibbs a question? 2 questions, actually. So, I mean, I don't want to play it by ear either, but if there isn't like a majority of a feeling, I feel like that would be slighter of a compromise. But if it happens during public comments, can anyone in that moment make a motion to turn the cameras off?
The problem with that is,
You gave it to someone, you did one for
are
one
you
and
now,
not for the
yeah,
other.
are you now
Yeah.
discriminating based on viewpoint?
True.
And
Okay.
that is my
So it would have to be
legal
after.
concern. Yeah, it's like everybody, it's all or nothing.
Right.
As far as I can say.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation to the board. You broadcast it or you don't.
So my other question would be about this law specifically. Does it say the board chair gets to make the decision, or can any member stop the person from talking?
The bill says the board.
Right.
So the chair runs these meetings. So, I mean, the way it's written, if the board walks out of the building because they're out yelling on a bullhorn and stops somebody from reading a challenged book, there's an argument to be made that you have to pull that book now.
So only person on this dais who can make that decision is Mr. Susan.
Yes.
He runs the meeting, so he's the one that stops the public comment. If somebody were to quit and he did not say, hey, wait, I'm the chair, I'm not stopping them, they can continue, and another board member saying stop reading, and they walk away, they could make that same argument. Well, a board member stopped me, the law says the board.
I get it.
So
But that's another issue that I have with it too, because not only we're circumventing a policy, but we're then giving the power to the current chair and whoever's the chair going forward to just make the decision.
And the weight, not just the
Right,
power, but the
right. Well, whatever. I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean it's odd, and it literally circumvents the entire point of the committee and the policy going forward. It's one person. So, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that one. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Pass me some water.
So for me, I'll just be honest with you. This is opening up a can of worms as far as, first off, I want to say I support any board member and some of their thought processes to have a good discussion. But here's where I'm falling. We're actually talking about, can anybody make the motion? Why does the chair have to? We're actually developing a policy change wrapped around and actions of members that are speaking. It's just, for me, it's just not something that I truly believe in and support. But I'm willing to allow, you know what I mean, discussion moving forward and stuff like that. But if we're sitting there saying that the chair is the person that makes the decision and somebody else decides that they can throw over and say, please stop, I promise you I will tell you to continue if I'm running the meeting, right? And the other piece is that changing a policy to create another policy because of actions that are currently happening that we then have to then change back eventually, because, I mean, we came to that agreement that people who come in speak, and that's how we let them do it. We did not want to divide it. We did not want to do all that stuff. And I understand, that's why I'm willing to continue the discussion, but where I stand right now, I don't think I would support moving it unless something actually that you bring forward would sway me, and I'm okay with.
Can you clarify moving it?
You want to move forward with having more discussion, bring forward information. Mr. Trent has said he would like to hear that. Ms. Jenkins has said she'd like to hear that. You have said you would like to do that. What I was just saying is that as part of my conversation where I stand, and I wanted to give you that thought process, but I would like to also say that as one of our fellow board members, if you have an issue that you'd like to push, it seems like the majority's here, let's get moving, and if you can just kind of clarify what you think the next steps would be, then that would be great.
Well, it sounds like everybody needs to spend some time with House Bill 1069 and maybe talking, thinking about it. And I have looked at House Bill 1069 and read the actual language and not the summary, because the summary, it's a little bit different. But I have not looked at the state board rule that came out of this. And if Ms. Harris could send us that, I know she's still working on the policy revisions, but anything that might further clarify this particular part of the bill, because that would probably be helpful, because I did not look at that ahead of time. But then maybe we just need to all chew on it a little bit and come back. I know, Mr. Trent, you said you want to talk to some people, but just to be very clear, I don't want us to split off public comment. We'll just keep it all together like we have. At some point, some of these books might end up the way, if we revise the policy the way that we said we were going to, which is make the final vote be on the board and not on the committee. They're going to make a recommendation. They will be agenda items. And, but, like I said, that part of the process makes me uncomfortable. And so maybe my suggestion would be that we just chew on it a little bit longer. We bring that conversation back. If we'll be ready to have that conversation on Tuesday, then maybe we have it on Tuesday. Otherwise, there's not a super rush, except for we have a board meeting in 12 days. So I'd kind of like us to have made a decision either at the workshop. We could even make it that night. Sorry.
She's throwing things.
There goes my notes. Yeah. But anyway, I feel like we need to have a decision before the next board meeting begins.
Well, you had mentioned the not splitting off, and I guess that's kind of where I was headed too, is we have so many young people and parents and things here early on when public comment is going.
That's true.
That if we had public comment in response to agenda items, and then at the end of the meeting, public comment that has nothing to do with the agenda items, we're going to be left with this anyway. I don't know, do districts
Yeah, but we just
do
went
that
away
kind of
from
stuff?
that. So are you suggesting we kind of go back or have a book challenge section?
I don't care if it's book challenge, but anything, you would have to probably say agenda speaking items and non-agenda speaking
But that's
items.
what we had when you got on the board,
Correct.
Mr. Trent, and then we got away from that.
But we
This
didn't
law
have, like
changes-
Ms. Jenkins said, we didn't have the law,
We did not have
we
this
didn't have
law.
to sit, times change.
So that's a longer conversation.
So
but
that's
I'm
a
willing to-
conversation that-
Yeah. So I think we need to think about it,
Yes.
Mr. Susan, and come back. But
So
can
are
we
you
talk-
asking
can
to
we add
put it on
this
the agenda
to-
for next Tuesday?
Can we do that?
Is
that-
that enough time for y'all to
Yeah,
get with
Yeah,
people?
that's enough time
Sure
for
it
me
is.
to, I know where I'm at with this one,
We
but.
can add it to the agenda for Tuesday for discussion, and then if we need to do something. But just as I'm hearing you say, the change that we do doesn't have to be part of the policy. It can just be that we just move that way administratively. It doesn't have to be stated in the policy, so it's not that we have to go through rulemaking, stuff like that. We just will
Well, if we,
move to a
if we
different
move
format.
to Mr. Trent's idea, we do.
We do if
correct?
it's Mr.
Right.
Trent's
Yeah.
idea, but
Yeah.
That
right,
was just a
Mr. Gibbs,
suggestion.
like we can ask the question to move the public speaking to be recorded or after hours without changing the policy. But if we have to split what the definition of the policy is, we would have to go through rulemaking and the 27 days and all that other stuff.
Right, you'd have to do it by motion like we did when
Yeah.
we had it split
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
non-agenda was off air
All right.
per the policy.
So does everybody understand the direction? Bring it back on Tuesday. You can change it administratively, not with policy under one, and if we have to change it under policy, it's the other. Okay, Anybody else have anything further to discuss?
Yes. Ms. Jenkins.
You have something?
No, Ms. Jenkins,
Ms.
sorry.
Jenkins.
Yeah. So I obviously was not here for 2 meetings, so I didn't get to participate in some important conversations. And so I'm going to take this time to do that. I also believe I'm not the only person who probably wants to, given the email that we received today. I also wrote down my thoughts because I want to be careful about the words that I'm using. So forgive me for reading, but I just want to be careful. And so I want to speak about the Vera High School incident because I didn't get to participate in that conversation. And so I believe it's our responsibility to respond to what we saw, and that it was our responsibility to ensure the students on that team felt comfortable expressing how they felt about the incident taking place and whether or not this incident has ever happened before. I believed that the superintendent's initial statements did that, both privately on the phone with me and publicly. I think it demonstrated the severity of the incident, and I commended him on that publicly and privately. But what followed really confused me. And with all due respect, my life personally was consumed. And so I didn't have time to engage over the past 2 weeks to really kind of navigate everything. I'm frustrated that we hosted a closed parent meeting. And I understand why we didn't want to invite the public, because that wasn't necessary to do at the time. But I think it was frustrating to not invite the press because it leaves room for speculation and confusion and an illusion of sweeping things under the rug. I believe that the intention of this parent meeting was to be run by our superintendent and by the principal and administration of that school. And I think it was overshadowed by the participation of someone else. I've been told by numerous attendees that there were statements that we needed to ensure that this reflected a one-time incident, that there were statements being made that were giving an appearance of representing the opinions of a board as a whole when the board had yet to have a conversation. It's our job to keep our students safe and to ensure that all of our student athletes know that this behavior is unacceptable and will not be tolerated on our campuses. And it is my opinion that we failed to do that, and that we sent a message of, if you just don't record it, if you just don't post it, and you don't speak out against it, your friends can get back on the field. The public wants clarity and communication, and they deserve it. We are not legally allowed to share student information, but we can at a minimum say what consequences were dealt out so the community doesn't just hear that kids are back playing on the field. So today I had the opportunity to review the school's investigation. I don't know if anyone else had time to, and I don't expect you to, because an email went out to all of you after I requested it. But quite frankly, I'm not satisfied with it. And I'm confused and I'm frustrated because we classified some students as participating in a hazing incident and other students with inciting an incident. And both groups of labels had very different consequences. And I watched that video, and there is no world where I believe a student intentionally filming an incident or throwing dozens of condoms at a victim is less culpable than one that was on top of the victim. There's no world where I don't believe that this was pre-planned and that all parties were equally participating in a hazing event. Within this investigation, a student has alleged that this has happened previously. And it's an allegation at this point, but there was no documentation in there that showed a follow-up on those claims. And that's concerning to me because not investigating that tells the student who was brave enough to admit that their negative actions only matter because they were the ones who got caught doing a negative action, and that we don't care that it may have happened to them in the past, and that we don't care to investigate if there truly is a pattern or a culture here. So if we haven't seen an investigation from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, And the state attorney's office has not even been in receipt of that investigation yet. In the video that we saw, there is clearly another victim and perpetrator in the background of that video. Those people have yet to be identified. Then why are we allowing this program to resume? And I get it's frustrating for the innocent students involved, but as a parent, I would be encouraging my kid to stand up and say, this isn't right, this isn't what our school should embody or emulate, and that we needed to learn from this lesson. And it's not our job just to do what's easy, it's our job to do what's right, even if it's going to disappoint some people. And the outcomes may not be what they want it to be. So I'm asking tonight that we move as a board majority to suspending this season at a minimum until all of the investigations are completed, all of the victims and perpetrators are identified, the investigation from Brevard County Sheriff's Office is reviewed by BPS, and then the state's attorney's office makes a determination. I feel like we have rushed through this process and dropped the ball for our community, and I don't think we did the right thing here. As a parent, I would be livid if it was my kid. I would be livid. And I think about if this was not a male student or a football player, would we have been handling this differently? If this was a cheerleader that this happened to? And I can't help but think that way. And I hate that I have to think that way. And I think we've sent the wrong message to our students. And that's frustrating to me. I think we need to do better for our kids. And again, I don't expect that you guys had time to read that yet, but if I was the parent who found out that there was another victim in a video that we never even identified, like, how are we allowing these kids to play? We don't even know if we got all the kids that were involved. I mean, it's common sense. We can see it on the video. It's right there. There may or may not have been other videos involved that we didn't see. I only saw one. That's concerning to me. Now, if we get a copy of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office investigation and all of that is covered, it's very possible that it's covered, then we can move quickly through a resolution of this process, but we haven't seen that yet. So again, I'm asking tonight that we move to suspend this season until all investigations are complete, all victims and perpetrators are identified, it's reviewed, and the state attorney makes a determination.
Ms. Campbell, do you wish to speak on this topic? I think each one of us, if I could say something, I think each one of us should speak on this, and then I don't want to have a back and forth all night and conversations and stuff like that. So if we can make our statements and then conclude with, if you, during your statement, you can mention if you support Ms. Jenkins's thing, which I think would have to be on an agenda anyway, but if not, we can at least give a majority and figure that out later. So, Ms. Campbell.
I think that we
Can figure it out later if we
should
need
give
to.
a consensus to the superintendent, because honestly, it's not a, I'm gonna, when we had our meeting last time, I talked about, this is, it's our responsibility to put the rules in place. We pass the student code of conduct, we pass our discipline policies, we have in place what we need. It's very frustrating often on our end of things that what the public wants to know is they want to know what the consequences were, and the image, the story that's going out, because I've seen it, is that there were students who were involved, who, like the actual perpetrators in the video. And by the way, for the record, I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it until such time. If I sit in an expulsion hearing and I need to see it, I'll see it then. But I'm trying not to be a part of what is continuing that circulation. But, sorry, lost my train of thought.
Superintendent.
Thank you, superintendent. That his, I want to, that is our job to put in place. Oh, I know where I was going, sorry. What the public wants to know, they want to know what happened to the people who did the things. We can't say that. FERPA laws prevent us from telling people their students' educational records. What we can say is that in our student code of conduct, which is a public record, it's a public document, is that hazing is a level 4 offense. So, by the way, is sexual assault, if it were ever to be decided that. They are both level 4. And if you look across the way of that chart, it says very clearly that the consequences for level 4 offenses, which include expulsion, a placement at the ALC, it has all those things. So we can't tell you what's happened to students, but we can tell you the punishment or the discipline for those kinds of activities are this. And so I know that's, you know, but it is frustrating sometimes because what people want to know is they want to know, did the discipline, you know, what was done in it. I didn't hear, it looks like nothing happened. Well, that is absolutely not the case. I am going to continue to support our superintendent and our chief of schools and the staff that have been working on this and the investigation that they've done. I haven't looked at the report, and honestly, I don't feel comfortable moving along with your suggestion without having really looked at what was done, what was not done. My general thought is we are the policymakers, and we also sit in a quasi-judicial role if it were to ever come to us in an expulsion hearing. The superintendent and his staff are the executors of those policies, and that needs to stay in their lane. And so that's where I feel right now.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Mr. Trent?
Just so I don't repeat a lot of what Ms. Campbell said, and I agree with almost everything you said right there, just because we're not going out there as board members and making a big deal about this, it doesn't mean things are not happening. This is at the superintendent level and below. We got to let things happen. I think it would be irresponsible if we ran out the night we heard about this and had a podcast with community members and stirred the pot. I think that's irresponsible. I'm glad I didn't do that. I'm going to let the process go through. We don't condone any of that behavior at all, period. It's wrong. We know that. So, I mean, we have to respect the process. And if the findings come in later that it's different than what we were told, then we can handle it differently. But no, I respect the, I don't want to keep saying I respect the process, but I think it's being, based on the information we had at the time, I'm satisfied with where we're at this point and moving forward. I question, would we be having these same questions from the public if maybe it was a different high school? I don't know. I don't even want to go there. So I think we're right where we're supposed to be at this point. And I feel for the victims. I feel for the students that were involved. So we're just not ready to make any further discipline actions.
Ms. Wright?
All right. This situation is one that I'm sure every one of us has been inundated with a lot of communication from the community that's outraged over it, and I am outraged. My heart breaks because there is a child in the middle of that video that is assaulted over and over and over again every time that video is played, and that child's life doesn't get to pick up and go back on a field somewhere or walk the halls of the school the same or do any of those same things, and so that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I don't feel, Ms. Jenkins, you know, you and I don't agree on a lot of things. We don't. And so, honestly, but this one, I cannot disagree with what you are saying and the fact that the communication that's come out of our district hasn't been very much. None, really. I mean, and so it doesn't look good at all. And did we adequately teach the lesson to these children on how they're going to move forward and be better students and make sure that they are contributing to society and not doing things that are going to potentially hurt someone's life forever? I don't know that we have. And so, you know, this is an interestingly enough thing because I think it's going to end up coming down to a 2-2 on this one. I want to say I trust the process, but here's what I don't like, is that trusting the process right now feels like we potentially miss the boat to teach the lesson, and we don't keep the other children safe if we're not doing what we're supposed to do. So I too question, hey, how are we making decisions when we don't even have the investigation completed yet. That's pretty hard. To me, it should have been pause until the investigation gets wrapped up. I haven't read the investigation. I don't believe, I wanted to wait till it was done in its entirety and then read it. So, you know, again, my heart breaks for this situation. We did not do this, we did not create this, but we are tasked with how do we teach the lesson to these children, to all of our sports teams, that this cannot happen, that we will not tolerate it in Brevard County. How do we do that? And right now, I feel like the message that the community's received is we haven't done that. We just picked up and they're back playing. And I get that not everyone was involved. I understand all that. It's complicated. There's no easy solution that makes everyone happy. So I'm going to side with Ms. Jenkins on this one until the investigation gets wrapped up and it's cleared up. Then I would be in favor of that. So interestingly enough, Mr. Susan, it's going to come down to you, and it's your district, which is probably very fitting that you'll get to make the decision on this one. So
Thank you very much. I wanted to, just hang on. Yeah, I will. I'll give him the opportunity to speak. This has been a hard thing for a lot of people. I think that moving forward, we all agree. There's not a single one of us that disagrees that what happened was a tragedy and was horrible. There were some false statements that were made earlier today that said that I hadn't reached out to the parent the right way or whatever. Just to clarify some of that, I saw that video for a brief second and I couldn't watch any more of it for more than 2 seconds because I saw my son there and what that would do to him, and that's disgusting. And when I reached out to the parent, I told her, I said, this is a disgusting thing that happened and it is wrong. And this is something that should never have happened. And I told her, I said, from the bottom of my heart, I apologize, and I am here and willing to anything that you need me to do as a board chair to support. I also called the husband or the father and talked to him because I felt like I needed to reach out to them. I also reached out to the staff every day to make sure that the kids, not only the individual that had the situation, but others were in a better place, because my fear, as I reached out to Dr. Rendell too to keep an eye on the children, was that they were in a lonely place. And we all know that that's not where we want our kids. So I wanted to kind of clarify some of those false statements that were done there. I will tell you that it is very, there are a lot of things around this that I agree with some of the statements that everybody's making. My judgment in what happens would have to be that when a full investigation comes forward, we would be able to make those judgments. And until then, the superintendent is moving forward and making judgment calls. As the board chair, some of those calls that were made, I was able to communicate that. That's part of the job of what we do. At no point was I a part of any of this investigation. At no point was I asked to give my weigh in on this. At no point was I in any part of it. The bottom line is that we've moved forward with an investigation. Dr. Rendell made decisions along the way, and until we get the final report, I feel it's the proper process is the right way to go, and to continue with what the superintendent did. So with that, Dr. Rendell, would you please give an update if you have anything you would like to say?
I don't really have an update or anything like that. We followed the process, as has been mentioned several times. We followed the student code of conduct for the behavior that was exhibited by the students. The students that committed those infractions were given the appropriate punishment, as Ms. Campbell mentioned, outlined in the student code of conduct. We have not made general statements about the consequences for the individual students involved because we don't usually do that. We don't want to violate FERPA or anything else. You can violate FERPA even if you don't name the students, because it's only a handful of students. So if you say this student got this and this student got that, it's pretty easy to figure out who those students are. So that's why we haven't named individual students and punishments. But we have done everything in accordance with the student code of conduct. We did suspend the season. We did take some actions to correct the behavior. When we felt that the team could resume practice and play, we did that. But the individuals involved, and I'll say this as careful as I can, have been dealt with and received the appropriate consequences. We had completed our school investigation. The Brevard County Sheriff's Office took over after that and conducted their own investigation. And so they had completed that investigation before we made the decision to go return to play. And that was based on the information they provided to us, which I can't really discuss because it's still, in the hands of the state attorney's office. But the basic information was that it was an isolated incident. It was not a culture that was unhealthy that we could move forward. So, I mean, that's really about all I'm prepared to say. I mean, it's one of those things that I know people want information, and in the absence of information, they make up their own information. But, we're still not going to violate FERPA. We're also not going to put ourselves in a situation, that, we've shared as much as we can share. And, the misinformation out there, I'm not going to go through point by point and address. We feel like we've done everything we were supposed to do in response. And if we haven't, then we'll learn from that. But, I'm not really going to give a point by point or blow by blow in this situation. I feel like, we made the statement numerous times that this is not acceptable behavior. This is not the kind of thing we tolerate. It doesn't matter which school it is. It doesn't matter. And so we did take some pretty serious actions and have stood by those actions. So I don't think we need to go through and justify any of the other decisions or anything like that.
All right, with all that said, for the good of the order. Thank you.